We're live
with Jeffrey from Only Talk Sports. That's myself. You got Jackson over here somewhere, and then you got Buckeye Mike down here.
What's up, YouTube? How we doing tonight?
And that was unfortunately my recording playing. Sorry about that. So there you go. That is off. We're officially live, and our first game that we got to talk about with this great trio here, because unfortunately Will is not here in Austin. How about UMass and Texas A&M? Texas A&M, they got it done. A lot of people thought maybe UMass would win because Texas A&M had completely thrown in the towel. I picked Texas A&M to win, and they got it done. So what do you guys feel about Texas A&M with Jimbo Fisher finally getting a big win over UMass?
Well, A&M finally ended that 6-game losing streak, so that's something to feel good about. And, next week they got LSU coming to their backyard, which last 2 times that LSU's come to College Station, A&M has beaten them. So
we'll be talking about that next week.
Maybe, maybe not. We won't know for sure till next week.
So I guess, like I said, big win for Jimbo Fisher. I mean, I would have my doubts they could get it done, but they were able to pull it out. The next game we got is Virginia Tech and Liberty. I picked Liberty, and Hugh Freeze. It kind of looked like, I guess, Hugh Freeze was looking for the job. I don't know, because Liberty did not show up to play. It was definitely not the same team that played Arkansas. We'll get to Arkansas later. So Liberty loses to Virginia Tech, a 2-8 football team, before they won. I kind of blown away at that result. What are you guys feeling about that one?
Hey, Liberty, here is your Power 5 application. We need you instead of Virginia Tech as a Power 5 school. So, because you beat Arkansas, which was a fluke, I feel like. You're close with Virginia Tech. I mean, anybody can be close to beating or actually beat Virginia Tech. So, why don't you just come on up now instead of waiting a little bit? This is an embarrassment and a disgrace to Power 5 schools.
Hello, Austin.
What's going on, fellas? What a beautiful day of college football around.
We were talking about the game you wanted on the list. Give us your take on it, man.
Well, Virginia Tech sure showed us, didn't they, fellas? I mean, what else is there to say? I mean,
well, Hugh Freeze is distracted by potential job offers. So I guess that's the else to say.
Mm-hmm. That is true. But hey, fellas, let's show some love to the USC Trojans. They're going to the Pac-12 championship. First time.
And their playoff hopes are still.
First time in 5 years. Shout out to Tim, Tony, and Rick.
Yeah.
And me, because I think, the only one that picked USC. I think. I'm not sure if any of you guys did. I'm pretty sure all of you picked UCLA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, it's...
I had USC. But...
Oh, you did, Austin? I couldn't remember. But yeah, you weren't. I don't.
He wasn't live with us.
Yeah, you weren't there, so I'm not even sure who you picked. But we picked USC then. What did you feel on Texas A&M UMass, Austin? That was the first game we did. What did you feel about that one?
If Jimbo didn't win that game, he should be out of the job. That's all I've got to say on that. Because if you can't beat UMass, there's something wrong.
Well, he beat him, and he's still employed, so he escaped by the skin of his chin. That's all I can say. So that was really good for him. I guess our next game, quite a shocker in Greenville, North Carolina. I don't know what the heck happened here. How did Houston destroy East Carolina? I thought ECU would win, and they've been playing really good in Houston. Dana Holgerson, is he on the hot seat? Even though didn't think he ever was, especially coming off an 11-2 season. But they just destroyed ECU. What do you guys feel about Houston East Carolina game?
Well, East Carolina's little kill list for the future Big 12 is 2-2. But Dana Holgerson's keeping Houston folks happy tonight in a very disappointing season that they've had this year.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they haven't been bad. They're 7-4. I mean, I know
Right.
Houston has pretty high standards and all that for a group of 5, even though they're going to be technically Power 5 school in a couple of years, but still, that was a big win. I mean, no one expected that to happen. I thought that would be a 1-score game either way, but I mean, again, Houston played really well. What do you think about that, Austin?
I didn't get to see much of that game, but I will say, though, that Houston, they've been up and down all year. Like that was said, that their defense comes and goes. And today the defense did its thing.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And it's a great win for them.
We didn't do this game because there was too many games to do. I just kind of want to touch on it real brief. But Wisconsin beat Nebraska 15-14. Nebraska, again, is still finding ways to lose every single game. I mean, they were winning the whole time. And they just blew that game.
Yeah, they were up 14-3 at one point.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Yeah, Wisconsin. Go ahead, Austin.
I was just going to make a quick comment that Wisconsin, their season has been disastrous, and I'm glad they beat Nebraska. At least they could say that they're going to at least go to a bowl this year. At least they could say that.
Mm-hmm.
But Wisconsin's just been flip-flopping this year. But
oh, yeah.
Anything I got to say about them, I'm not going to say on the air. Let's just put it that way.
Our next game.
Gentlemen,
go ahead, Austin.
Hold on, Jeffrey. I would like to touch on, if you fellas don't mind, the gentleman next to us, Buckeye Mike. How about them Buckeyes? Were you all looking ahead?
No, actually. Fun fact that Tommy Eichenberg was playing with 2 broken hands. And if anybody saw the block punt that Lathan Ransom had, he had broken his finger on the first play of the game. And the hand that he used to block the punt was the broken finger hand. Because here's the thing. If we were looking ahead, Michigan was definitely looking ahead. So we'll get more on that later.
Yeah, we're going to get to that game for sure because there's definitely more to talk about with that one. But the next game we got is Kansas State and West Virginia. That was a game where a lot of people thought maybe West Virginia would upset Kansas State, but they took care of business. Kansas State did. I've been picking Kansas State last couple weeks, and they've done a good job. They beat Baylor handily, and they beat West Virginia pretty decently, so that was a really good win for Kansas State. What do you guys think about that one?
Well, Chris Kleiman automatically has a new contract extension with this victory. And if they beat Kansas next Saturday, they clinch a trip to the Big 12 title game. And, it was a magnificent victory for the Kansas State Wildcats. As for West Virginia, all I can say is Neil Brown getting fired tomorrow Is he going to be coaching the season finale against Oklahoma State next Saturday? Is he going to get that dreaded vote of confidence for the 2023 season? Because there's no athletic director at West Virginia at the moment. So that's the question for West Virginia.
I will say West Virginia has come this far with him. I think they will do their due diligence and let him finish out next week. But as far as the game was concerned, I thought West Virginia hung in there as long as they did, hung in there as long as they could. But eventually Kansas State was just too much at the end. I mean, when their offense is clicking, their offense is something else. And West Virginia's defense, it needs some improvement. Sorry, Joey, if you're listening, but it needs
Joey
improvement.
has a weird theory. Joey has a weird theory that Neal Brown is safe because he feels West Virginia fired the athletic director because he claimed that he's terrible and that Neal Brown's going to be fine when they get a new athletic director to support the program. I don't know if I agree with that necessarily. I mean, we'll see. But Neal Brown has always struck me as a vanilla guy. I mean, when I watch them play, they're just bland. Everything about them's bland. Probably the most. I don't want to get in. There's not many people watching right now anyway, but I don't want to make anybody upset. But West Virginia, the most interesting thing about the team is probably when the game's over and they play the song, the country roads and all that. They're just a boring team. Their defense is boring. Their offense is boring. I'm just being frank. They're not a very fun team to watch. And they could be better because unlike the hat I'm wearing, Indiana 4-17 that we'll get to, West Virginia is a better 4-17. They're a better team, but they've lost a lot of games this year they could have won if Neal Brown coached better. To me, I think Neal Brown's an average coach, and I don't know if he's going to make it, but Joey Foster seems to think he will. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Neal Brown for sure.
Before we move on to this,
Jeffrey, I'd like to touch real fast. I agree with your statement. West Virginia has been in some very close games. If you think back, TCU, they had them on the ropes. It's just they shot themselves in the foot. They've been in a lot of games.
Well, that offsides penalty killed them against TCU.
Basically, what I'm saying is that they're a good team, but if they had a little extra spark in them, then they'd be better. And I just partly feel that Neal Brown has something to do with that.
Teacher. So first of all, Jackson, I think you should listen to Jeffrey from now on, because when you played Country Roads, he told you this would screw you over because you picked West Virginia and you played Country Roads.
He flipped it after that, though. He flipped
He
it
what?
after that.
Oh my God.
Which is ridiculous because he's like, I'm going West Virginia. I'm like, I don't know, man. You played the bare necessities and it broke you. So I don't know if playing Country Roads is going to get you the win. Anytime you play a song, team's going to lose.
Yeah.
Second of all, how is firing the AD going to make the football program better? If the AD is the problem, wouldn't all the sports programs be bad?
Mm-hmm.
Just thought.
That's a good point. I mean, the basketball team's doing a little bit better right now, it seems, this year. West Virginia basketball is starting out pretty good. They haven't played anybody. But, yeah.
Who has at this point?
I mean, I just don't think Neal Brown is it. I think he's just an average coach. And he's got a pretty decent team, but he's an average coach. And to me, that's why they're not winning. So that's about all I got to say. The next game.
We'll definitely see if Joey Foster's theory is true next Sunday on Black Sunday, the dreaded day for coaches on the hot seat.
Our next game in the Big 12 was probably one of the games of the day. There was some really good games that were pretty good, but this was a really good game. TCU and Baylor. I picked TCU. I thought they'd beat Baylor by more, but unironically, after a lot of teams that looked dead in the water last week show up to play today, Baylor was one of them. They scored 3 points against Kansas State, but then they come back around and they lose in a thriller 29-28 to TCU. TCU's playoff hopes are still alive. Baylor's having kind of a rough season for Dave Aranda standards. What do you guys feel about the TCU Baylor football game that the Horned Frogs, whatever symbol you were talking about, was able to pull it out?
Well, that ending, man, that was that's the stuff champions are made of right there.
I mean, how did they pull that off?
That's Coach of the Year.
Here's
stuff.
my thing I want to ask. If it comes down, if the playoff committee looks at TCU's body of work, how much of these close games are they going to get away with? Because they should beat Baylor by more than they should have. But anything can happen. I'm just curious what you all think. Like, if the committee was to look at their complete body of work and they say you played all these teams really close that you should have probably beaten by more, like, what do you think of that? Like, in terms of playoff hopes and.
That's a good question, but in my opinion about this, and you guys can offer your thoughts too, but my thoughts on it is that TCU, as we've said over and over, I know I have, they're not the fourth best team in the country. That's just a fact. They're not that good. Every year it seems that there's a team that does this where they find ways to win, and TCU is finding ways to win. They're not an impressive team. They got solid players. They've had really good coaching this year, and they found ways to win, but they're not the fourth best team in the country. But if they went out, they're in the playoff. If they went out, they're in because they've done enough, and everybody, the dominoes all around them are happening. Tennessee losing, perfect example. A lot is happening for TCU to make the playoff no matter what. As long as they went out, they are in because of the fact they did their job. You can make an argument all those close losses, but or close wins. It doesn't matter because they didn't lose a game. And all these other teams are losing, which is going to propel TCU to the playoff. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, yeah. Tennessee getting beat down by South Carolina 63-38 by an offense that's really bad. If anything, that really helps TCU. But, the question also is, does it benefit the loser of Ohio State, Michigan?
Yes.
Depends on the score of that game.
Yeah.
Because when it comes down to it, Tennessee is officially eliminated.
Yep.
TCU has to win out and they're in. Like Jeffrey said, the only thing is, what's the committee going to decide? The 4 best or the 4 most deserving? Because if you do the 4 most deserving, TCU deserves to be in there as long as they're undefeated with the conference championship. They may not be one of the 4 best teams because who knows? One of the 4 best teams could have 1, maybe 2 losses. They just got unlucky on a couple of days.
Mm-hmm. Well, they played a tougher schedule. I mean, if TCU was in the SEC, they'd already have 3 or 4 losses. Probably more than that.
Yeah,
I mean, they would for sure. And again, they're going to be in the playoff. And you're absolutely right about Ohio State and Michigan. The loser of that game has definitely benefited from it. You got to imagine if TCU drops a game and USC drops a game, the loser of the Ohio State-Michigan game, if it's close, is in. They're in because they're going to put 1-loss Michigan in over 2-loss LSU, more than likely 2-loss Alabama for sure, especially 2-loss Alabama. I mean, you can make an argument that LSU would jump the loser of that game, but if TCU and USC lose, then it's going to be not Georgia, and then you're going to have Ohio State just say they win the game, and then you're going to have Michigan's going to be there. If they lose, they're going to be there, and then TCU if they win. So that's how it's going to work out if all that happens.
Oh, where Buckeye might go.
I would like to make a comment. Jeffrey, you made a comment about the TCU schedule. Yes, it hasn't been the greatest, but they do have some quality wins on there. They have a victory over Texas, which a lot of people consider one of, if not the best team in the Big 12 most years. I know Texas fans like to think that. They dominated Oklahoma. So those are two really good wins. And Oklahoma has found their offense lately, and it found their team apparently. So that win's looking better for them. But I get what you're saying, Jeffrey. I understand. Like if they were in the SEC, yes, I agree. They would have lost their 2 games by now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. I'm just saying that TCU doesn't exactly deserve to be in the playoff, but they're going to. That's what I'm saying. They're going to make the playoff because enough of the dominoes have fallen already. So they're going to be in if they win out. But like I said, it's like Cincinnati. They made the playoff because they won out and all the other dominoes fell. TCU didn't even have to have as many dominoes fall like Cincinnati did to make the playoff. They're going to be in if they win out. That's all they have to do.
So I'll tell you something.
That's fair.
Iowa State and the either Kansas State or possibly Texas and Oklahoma State's out. So it's either Kansas State or Texas.
Good. As far as who's going to play in the Big 12?
Yeah, get that second spot for the Big 12 title game.
Did they already clinch TCU?
No. TCU already clinched, but Kansas State, has to beat Kansas for it to be clinched, or they need Baylor to beat Texas next Friday.
Okay. If TCU loses in the Big 12 championship game, they're out. More than likely. I mean, it would take a lot of stuff to happen for them to somehow squeak in still. They have to win out. There's no doubt about it, for sure.
Now,
no doubt about it.
Here's the thing.
Go ahead, Austin.
I was just going to make the comment said, if it is Kansas State TCU, can TCU beat them twice in a row? Because the old saying is it's hard to beat a team twice.
Well, plus Kansas State's playing really good right now. Kansas State's playing really, really good right now. And, I mean, early pick, if TCU K-State's in the championship game, I'm picking Kansas State right now. I mean, that could change, but it's circumstances happen. But, yeah.
I don't want to give my portion of our show at the end of the week away, but I almost would have more confidence in Iowa State beating TCU than whoever they would play in the Big 12 championship game.
Well,
I mean,
Iowa
that's
State's
not my official pick. I'm not saying that I'm picking.
I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying I would have more confidence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure. I agree with that. I mean, it's – I hope personally TCU wins out. I want them to make the playoff, but it's going to be very difficult for them. But if they win out, they're definitely in for sure. The next game we got is Illinois and Michigan, and this one was Blake Corum got hurt, and it definitely looked like Michigan was going to lose, but they pulled out with a field goal at the end. I don't know what to say about this game. I mean, we kind of thought that both Michigan and Ohio State would ease by their opponents, especially because Illinois had been looking kind of bad lately, and it was at Michigan, but they looked awful. It didn't help with Blake Corum being out, but Michigan definitely underperformed all of our picks. What do you guys think about Michigan's performance? Were they looking ahead? Was it because of Blake Corum? What do you guys think?
I think a little bit of both, to be quite honest.
Can I start by saying that I, at least myself, but I would assume that all four of us want to go on record and say it sucks that Blake got hurt. It did not bring me any joy as an Ohio State fan to see him go down.
Mm-hmm.
I hate seeing people get hurt. I do. And as a directive, if you are an Ohio State or a Michigan fan who likes to see that stuff happen to these guys, These guys are here for our entertainment. Yes, you can get caught up in the rivalry. These guys are here to entertain us. They're playing a sport. I mean, come on. You're messing with somebody's livelihood at the end of the day by hoping that somebody gets hurt. Now, yeah, I am guilty of getting caught up in the moment and saying, like, I screamed at the TV today. JJ McCarthy said somebody needs to rip your head off your neck. I shouldn't have said that. I got caught up in the whole thing. I shouldn't have said that. But I don't want that to happen to him.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
It sucks when these guys get hurt because everybody looks into, oh, well, then they're going to lose and they should lose because they're our rival or we just don't like that team. When these kids get hurt, we need to not gang up on the injury and say it's a good thing he got hurt. Don't be stupid. That's my main point. Just don't be stupid when these guys get hurt because at the end of the day, they're here for our entertainment. They're trying to get to the level of making money doing this. If it wasn't for people coming up with this stuff to invent these sports, we wouldn't have this entertainment. We wouldn't all be on this platform right now.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that 100%. I mean, I maybe not the extreme of that, but I mean, it's like sometimes when I'm watching a game, especially when Indiana plays, or any team plays, and it's like I want this team to win, and then a player gets hurt on the team I want to win, and it's like, why doesn't that happen to the other team? Like, that's immediately your thought, like, why didn't this happen to them? And it's like you don't want to think that way, but you do, because I mean, think about it. I mean, how many games have you watched? I've watched. We've all watched where somebody didn't get hurt for a team, just a star player, like. It doesn't matter, like a Blake Corum, and the team loses. If the other team's star player had gotten hurt, they would have lost. That's why sports are so unpredictable. Because I say it all the time when I'm picking games. I'm like, if I had known that player was going to get hurt in the first quarter, I wouldn't have picked them to win. But you can't predict that. It happens. But yes, I agree with you 100% that we as fans do not need to do that. We don't need to want players to get hurt because, again, it's not just about the game. Their lives are screwed up for months when they have torn ACLs and all this stuff. And I mean, back in the past, some players died on the field. It happened. They've lightened the rules up now where that's hard to happen, but it's ridiculous the way people are.
It's like everybody predicted Alabama to win the title last year. I guarantee you, and this goes back to your point, I guarantee you Jameson Williams doesn't go down when he went down in that game. Alabama probably wins the game because Jameson Williams was one of the major keys for Alabama to that game.
You have something to say, Austin? Yeah, he was flipping his thing back and forth. So I didn't want to talk, but yeah, again, you're right. I mean, Alabama probably would have lost. And what if Georgia, some of their defenders, like 2 or 3 of their defenders, had gotten hurt in that game? That'd have made it easier.
Yeah. First off, I'd like to say to Blake Corum and his family, hopefully he gets healthy and he can play next weekend against Ohio State. But as far as the game is concerned, Michigan pulled a gutsy victory out today because Illinois, they gave Michigan everything they had and then some. For Michigan to win the way that they did, to kick the last-second field goal and still to pull it out at the end, I give them props. And I give Illinois the props too because they played a heck of a game. Michigan just made one play better than they did. And for that, congratulations to all the Wolverines out there. I know you all were a little nervous at first, but now you can focus your full attention on the Ohio State Buckeyes and looking forward to beating them in their house and ending their playoff hopes.
Maybe.
I will say that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because they won the game. They obviously deserve to win the game. But the refs The refs, come on. If you go back and watch that entire stretch at the end of the game, you can tell. Like, I even had friends texting me that aren't Ohio State fans. Michigan got homered in some of the calls at the end of the game. Can we just have some refs that call the game cleanly and fairly and properly? Because, yeah, the refs sometimes, just like the weather, are part of the reason that some of these teams lose or win, but it's not the only reason. But if we could just, for once in our lives, have a game that's properly called down the middle fairly. Like, I mean, I'd even say let's get Kirk Herbstreit to referee a game, because this man goes to the games for Ohio State and calls the games down the middle. Now, yes, as I've always said, during commercial breaks or timeouts, he's up in the booth and he's like, yeah, let's go. State's winning. Or dang it, State, you gotta do better. But when you listen to him actually call the game, he's down the middle and he's fair. Can we just get some refs that are fair and not blind or stupid?
I agree with you 100%. I do the same thing when I'm doing my videos.
Hey,
man.
Buckeye Mike,
Because when I want a team to win, I'm like down the middle. When I do the preview and prediction, I'm not gonna like, man, I hope Indiana. I didn't do a previous game. I want Indiana to beat Michigan State. I'm picking Indiana to beat Michigan State because Michigan State stinks. And we're gonna take the spittoon. And I don't do that. I'm like, Indiana, they're really struggling. Michigan State's playing a little bit better. I'm picking Michigan State to win. Like, I don't do that because you shouldn't do it. If you're can't say I'm a commentator, obviously, but when you're doing YouTube videos, it's kind of like you're on ESPN, and you want to be fair. You don't want to be biased. And Kirk Herbstreit does a great job because of the fact you don't want him up there going, man, Michigan sucks. I want them to lose. I can't stand them. Take his head off. Destroy. You can't do that. Like, that's just not how it's done. You can't do it.
The only time I've ever heard him use the explanation of take his head off is when he's explaining somebody literally getting blown up. That's the other thing, too. We as fans, like, I've seen guys in their 60s watching games of teams that they're diehards of. We as fans need to understand these commentators are not going this deep into explanation for us. They're going deep into explanation for the next generation, or the people that don't know the sport and want to learn the sport. It's not for our benefit. It's for more fan base benefit.
Yeah, because I've learned so much from football just from commentators. Because, I mean, I've never played the game, obviously. If I'd played the game, I'd be dead.
What did you say? What did you want to say, Austin?
I will say the officiating, it's bad all across the league. Like, it's not just the Big Ten or the ACC or the SEC or the Pac-12. It's all bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I get what you're saying, Buckeye Mike. Some officiating crews are worse than others, i.e. the Pac-12.
Well, that's the thing. Officiating, and I'm just calling out this game because nobody's watched it, obviously, that's watching this. But, for instance, I watched Indiana basketball play at Xavier on Friday night, okay? And that game is as much as I want to say, oh, they're helping the home team a little. Indiana got 2 technical fouls on plays that, oh, well, he looked at the bench a little bit and he might have said something. That's a technical foul. And, oh, he got a layup, and then the guy looks over at the player, gets it. But Xavier the whole night long was yelling in Indiana players' face. They were screaming at him. You could tell they were cussing at him because you could see their lips on TV. No text. Why? Because that game was at Xavier. So, yes, I don't care. I will say it right now live on YouTube. Refs sometimes do kind of jack the game up. They do. They sometimes tilt one way or the other, and it's so obvious. People say it all over social media, but people don't do anything about it. This will never change. It's always been this way. There are certain teams and certain games where the refs clearly tilt one way, and it's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana won, by the way, at Xavier. It was about 2 instead of 15 because they would have easily beat him if it weren't for the refs.
Holy crap. So you mean both Big Ten schools took down Xavier? Because Michigan State won too. Or no, that was Villanova. My bad. That was Villanova.
I
for the
would
Gabby
like
game.
to say, I know we're complaining about the refs and stuff. We do have to still give Michigan their credit. They did win at the end of the day. So therefore, we still got to give them credit, no matter how they got it done. It's a win is a win.
Right. That's what I'm trying to do. I mean, to go back to Jeffrey's point, it's like when a well-known receiver is up against the top receiver on one team is up against the top cornerback on the other team, and they're going at it all game long, and they're jaw jacking each other. They're letting them play, be a little rough. But the second that cornerback lays out the receiver, and then he gets up and he's just, yeah, man, take that hit. It's like, really? Now, with about 5 minutes left in the game, at a crucial point in the game, now you're going to call everything. Yeah, now you're going to call it.
Oh, those are the worst calls.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Ohio
my
State's
point.
been
That's my main point.
Some of the receiving end of them. But
Yeah,
I'm
I know
like,
refs,
didn't
Josh,
Ohio State?
I know. Sorry, Austin. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, ain't Ohio State? Don't they get some of those calls too when your corners celebrate?
Yeah, I mean, everybody gets calls, but my point is like, okay, you're calling this with about 5 minutes left in the game. It's a 3rd and 17. We hit the quarterback, and so now you're going to call this. You haven't called this all game, but now you call it. Okay, all right.
Yeah, and my thing is that me personally, I try not to trash the refs because I know their job is hard, and I know that every play is different. And sometimes it's hard to call a game completely even. But we all, I've had conversation in chat rooms all over on YouTube talking about refs, and some people have this diehard belief that refs never, ever not basically screw a game or tilt a game one way or the other. And I'm like, no. I have watched games before where the refs clearly help another team. It happens. You can't say it don't because, I'm going to get banned off of YouTube. No, I don't care. It is true that the refs sometimes tilt one way or the other. It happens all the time. If it's not true, then I'll never talk again. I'll never do another YouTube video. But it's true. Sometimes the refs want a team to win more than the other. Do I know why? No.
Because the school that they're at paid them money.
Well, yeah, I wasn't going to say that. I was going to try to be a little nice.
Don't even try to be nice about it.
Oh, where did you?
Jackson, what do you think on this whole thing? Like the game, the refereeing, and everything else. Give us your perspective.
What happened, Jeffrey?
I was flipping through stuff and I accidentally knocked myself off my own stream. And what the heck? Talking about the refs blacklisted.
Alrighty.
But yeah, Jackson, tell us what you think, man. Do you think Michigan kind of had a little highway robbery there at the end, or what was your thoughts when you looked at this game?
Well, honestly, I kind of felt that Illinois kind of gave it away a little bit, especially that pass interference penalty at the end. What was his name? Witherspoon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a blatant one, too. Like, how in the world? Sorry, Jackson.
That's all right. Yeah, it was a dumb move for him to be doing that. But
the ball was going out of bounds. He was not going to be able to catch the ball. There's no point to chase the receiver and like, oh, there's a limb. Let me grab onto the limb and yank him. No, let him run out of bounds. Let him just run out of bounds. Oh, my God. Because that doesn't get called. Illinois wins the game, I bet. Mm-hmm. We can't say one way or the other. Hindsight, like Jeffrey's been trying to say, but I could almost guarantee it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's frustrating, and I mean, again, refs, and a lot of times do the best that they can, but it is what it is. And I mean, you do see it, but there's nothing you can do about it, obviously. But you just hope that when you watch a game that even if the refs make bad calls, that it won't impact the game. But when it does impact the game, it hurts for sure. I guess finally moving on to the next game is Michigan, the team up north for Buckeye Mike. They got a lot of screen time. I don't know how we're going to be able to talk about Ohio State longer after that. We're already 30 minutes
I can
in.
do it.
But our next game that we have on the docket is, let me scroll through here, Notre Dame and Boston College. This one kind of is funny because we all picked Notre Dame, I think. But we all were kind of like, even myself, it was going to be a close game because Notre Dame plays to their competition. They barely beat Navy. They blew the doors off Boston College. 44-0. Yeah.
So
they got them out 44-0. So
they actually covered the spread. They were favored by 3 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to make a comment here. As everyone knows, I'm a Louisville fan. Go Cards! But we have
we
to
got
lose to
you on the
Boston
screen with the Cardinal, man.
Hey, for new viewers, they may never know. But point is, we lost to Boston College earlier this year. It was a low point, and Boston College is a team that, if you take them lightly, they'll sneak up on you. And Notre Dame, I give them credit. They did not let Boston College do that. They did not look ahead to USC next weekend. I know we'll get to that in long form, but I thought, Notre Dame, they did what they were supposed to do. Their offense looked really good today, but they were supposed to against Boston College. And the fact that we lost to that Boston College team after seeing what Notre Dame did to them today makes me feel bad because we lost to that team. And we were better than that, Boston College.
Well, the team Louisville also played NC State. They also lost to Boston College, too.
I kind of think it was part of the fact that Boston College, kind of played a little spoiler. They kind of showed up in those games, but they didn't show up today. They flat out played terrible. Notre Dame, again, to their credit, if Will was here, he'd be talking about how great Notre Dame played and they looked like a playoff contender. But Boston College played bad. They played bad.
Oh, well, hold on, because
the snowstorm, like 5 minutes earlier, at one point during the game, there wasn't a bunch of snow, but then 5 minutes later, a bunch of snow,
like 6 inches or more,
like a lots and lots of snow. Oof, that's big.
But Notre Dame
I saw a video about Buffalo.
Yeah.
I saw a video about how bad it was up in Buffalo, or is up in Buffalo.
Yeah.
They had to move the game tomorrow from Buffalo to Detroit at Ford Field.
Well, yeah, because it's a big snowstorm in Buffalo. And, the Buffalo Bills, are going to play the Browns on Sunday in Detroit. And then on Thursday, which is Thanksgiving Day, they're going to play the Detroit Lions in the annual Thanksgiving game. So
they might as well just stay in Detroit then.
Well, as a wise old man from ESPN always says, no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
So I have to ask, regarding this Boston College Notre Dame game real fast, who do you think played better in terms of Notre Dame? Do you think their defense played better today or their offense?
For Notre Dame?
Shut them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, their offense actually showed production for once, right? I mean, I didn't watch the game, but I would assume based on the points, the offense actually showed some production. I mean, 21 points against Marshall, 10 points against Ohio State, 14 against Stanford, 24.
Yeah, we can't forget about that.
I agree with that assessment. I mean, I think Notre Dame, Boston College, I didn't watch really any of the game either, so I'm not probably the best person to be here to talk about Notre Dame. Again, Will would be if he was here. He could tell us everything, but I just think Boston College played terrible. That's about all he could say.
I will say, and maybe if we do this in the future, maybe it'd be better to do it on a different day.
Mhm.
But for us to get a better assessment, there is a channel on YouTube called Matthew Loves Ball. He records like every Power 5 game
Mhm.
and takes the game, shoves it down into a 30-minute video.
Yeah, I know it is. I've
So-
watched some of them when I can't watch games before. I mean, are you able to do that without getting copyrighted because you're like cutting it? Because I mean, I've
I
always
think so.
wondered.
Because he's got games going back to like 2020, 2019. So I would assume because you're cutting it down. But then again, like if you go and type in on YouTube here, like a certain game, you can find the full game in its entirety on YouTube.
Yeah, well then they usually take it down though. Because I've watched some like
Depends
after
on
the
who it
games
is,
are
too.
over, you watch like a full game and then like the next day it's taken down. I think his are all right, I guess, because he cuts them up and it's not showing the whole thing, even though he shows you everything that was important about the game. I would only say like if you want, like you're talking about yourself, if you wanted to do it, you'd be buried in the algorithm though because your videos would be behind his.
Oh, you talking about what we were talking about before we went live?
Yeah, like if you want to do that, like anybody wants to do it, me, you, anybody watching, if you want to do that, you're not going to be at the top because of the fact that people that are already established, like people know Matthew Loves Ball, he posts games. You know, if you're trying to do that, you're not going to be the first video to pull up. And trust me, a lot of people have a hard time scrolling past 3 videos. They do. Like it's funny. I'm I don't know about you guys. When I make a video, man, I'll search up what I made a video on. And like if I'm the 5th video down the line, or 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, I don't get any views. But if I'm like 2nd or 3rd, maybe, because people search and they'll click on the 1st or 2nd thing they look at. That's just how it works.
It just depends on what it is, honestly.
Mhm.
Because like I have one Heisman video has like 5 views. I have one like top 10 or top 12 video from a couple weeks ago, and it's got like 10 views. So you just have to make a plan every week during the season and have certain videos coming out on certain days, and then look at your videos at the end of the week or the end of the season and look at your views, and that'll give you a gauge of like, okay, these people, there are more people that like this rather than this. So next season, when it comes around, we're going to focus more on this instead of this. My thing I was bringing up was, what am I or us supposed to do during the off season? Because Mark basically covers everything that we could think of doing, along with other people.
Yeah. Oh,
There's a lot of people already doing what we're trying to do, and that's where you got to carve your own niche out of it. You got to do things either differently, do the same thing that they're doing but differently, or even better than they do it, or you got to do different things than they do. That's the only way you're going to make it.
Totally. What's the next game on the docket, Jeffrey?
The last thing, shout out to John Jansen here for talking about us and everything. I mean, yeah, Mark's got a lot of viewers, and I'm glad that you came on over and watching us. So
Thank you for watching us, John.
So that's awesome. The next game,
Thank you, John.
one more before we get to this one. But we got Duke and Pitt. Pittsburgh beat Duke, and it just kind of goes to show that Duke, they're a decent team, but they're not capable of beating an average Pitt team on the road. So what do you guys feel about that game? I think
Pitt's hot, man.
I told you this was going to be a
roll.
I told you this was going to be a puke fest.
Okay,
sorry,
so
Jeffrey's
I need
mom.
some explaining first.
Nah, you're good, man.
I need some explaining.
I think puke's okay. I do it all the time sometimes, man. I get a little
Well,
overhyped,
I'm just-
eat too
I'm
much
just-
sugar.
I'm just apologizing in general for anything before and anything after. Like, if I say something wrong, Jeffrey, please let me know. I can try to fix it from now on. But I do apologize in general.
Oh yeah, it's
Okay,
funny.
please
My
explain to
mom
me.
would not like Ty Guy's Jeopardy show. That thing gets very, especially when it gets past 1 a.m. Man, those guys get very wily. That's all I could say. They're getting.
Okay, so I did catch the ending of this game. What in the world kind of play was Duke running at the end to try to tie the game up? It looked like some type of Philly special, and Pitt looked like they just blew it up, or something went wrong that shouldn't have happened, because that was an awful looking play formation altogether.
I guess a lot of teams love that Philly special from Super Bowl 52 between the Eagles and Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
I'm just curious what happened, because the game was 28-26 Pitt. Duke was lining up to go for two, and they run the Philly special, and the running back was behind him. It looked like a miscommunication of some type, and Pitt like had four defenders right in the guy's face as he was throwing. I don't know if that was just a miscommunication of some type, or Pitt just knew it was coming, or all the above. Either way, Pitt escapes with the win because they were able to stop the 2-point conversion.
All I know is about Duke. I didn't really watch any of this game because I was watching a game that we're about to get to. It's going to be the very next game we talk about. But again, my thing about Duke is I'm from North Carolina, so I don't have any problem with Duke. Even though I personally probably like North Carolina a little bit better, but I don't really care. I like both teams fine. I don't really have the hate one way or the other. But Duke's not that good. I'm just being honest. They're if they play anybody competent in a bowl game that has no opt-outs, they're getting smoked. They're not that good. If they play a bad team in a bowl game, they'll win. Duke's not that good. They're one of the worst 7-4 teams in the country. They're playing in the ACC, which is sorry, Austin, but the conference has a lot of teams that are really bad in it. And I mean, Duke, a lot of people think they're better than what they are. I picked Pitt because I think Duke's not that good, and I don't think Pitt's that good either. But kudos to Pitt. They got the win, but Duke's a good team. I'm glad they're making a bowl because they haven't been good since Daniel Jones was there. They're good for their standards, but they're not a very good team. If they were in the SEC, they wouldn't even be bowl eligible.
Hold on, because if they were good when Daniel Jones was there, then were they ever really actually that good? I mean, I think what had happened was I was going to say, I think what happened was Daniel Jones peaked in college because Daniel Jones, I'm sorry, New York Giants need to give you whatever the rest of your contract is and send you on your merry way. I would honestly retire because you're not that good.
Well, that's
you're better than me because I'm just a fan, but and you obviously have enough talent to play in the NFL. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying from a perspective, you're not produced from the front office perspective, you're not producing good enough stats. You're not producing enough wins. So it's time for you to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I said loosely they were good. I didn't say they were good loosely. They were good for their standards.
Yeah, that's why the new GM, I forget his name. He's not Dave Gettleman. I know that. Basically told Daniel Jones, we're not going to give you a 5th-year extension. We're not going to give you that 5th-year option. So they're going. They're going the new QB route regardless. Going with the running back.
CJ.
I would like to ask you guys, I know we shouldn't spend too much longer on this Pitt Duke game, but do y'all think Duke's just been a team of luck this year? Like they've gotten almost everything to go their way, and that's how they've ended up 7-4?
That's kind of what I'm talking about when I said they're not that good. They're one of the worst 7-4 teams in the country. I don't want to be rude. I don't want to say anything bad about any team. I try not to be that way, but that's my problem is like I've had to train my family. I'm just going to loosely say family members, people that I know, because I watch football games with people that I know, and they'll look at the record and they're like, wow, Duke's having a really good season this year. They're 7-3. I'm like, no, they're not that good. I would almost favor Indiana over Duke. Almost. Almost.
I wouldn't almost. I would.
Yeah, because I mean,
Duke's
I
not
mean-
good.
Okay, I don't know what the rest of their non-con was, but when you start the season off against Tennessee Tech and you blow them out by 46, and then your fan base goes, "Oh my God, we're back! We're back! We're back! We're gonna do it! We're gonna win it all! We're gonna go to the playoff!" Hold your horses and go sit in the corner where you should be, because if you're celebrating almost 50-point win over Tennessee Tech in a football game, that's a big no-no.
well, Duke's non-conference schedule was Temple, Northwestern, North Carolina, A&T, and Kansas. One game.
Sorry. Kansas was the Tennessee Tech. Still, 30-0 over Temple. Come on.
Yeah.
Go sit in that corner.
Rutgers only beat Temple 16-14.
Yeah, that's not good.
No.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, though. Too. Kansas is considered a good team, though, now. Yeah, so that does look good on their resume.
They're
Even though they
starting to
did lose
lose
that
it,
game,
though.
yes.
I mean, overall, they're trending towards, like, they're closer to where they were in 2009 than they have been since, but they're not a good team. It's just that overall, the Big 12 is just trash across the board. Like, it is going to be sad and pathetic in a few years when Oklahoma and Texas leave, and then UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, and BYU all come and join in. And every year, it's going to be mostly a combination of those four teams for the Big 12 championship.
Well, I mean, Cincinnati's pretty good. So, I mean, as long as they keep it, cool.
Right.
And
I'm not
UCF
trying to. We'll get to UCF in a bit because
Malzahn doing
I got
Malzahn.
some issues with that.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't. We
Malzahn.
didn't even pick that
Malzahn.
game, so we didn't even pick that game, so it's not even on the schedule. But yeah, let's go ahead. We're
Yeah,
an hour
Navy-
in.
Okay,
Ryan,
all right. I'm going to
So
go through this real quick.
Yeah.
I understand that Navy is an issue. How in the world do you lose to Navy without them completing a pass? They ran the ball on you the whole time and still won the game. What in the world?
Buckeye
You
Mike.
have a passing attack.
Here's the thing about UCF. I will say this though. I'm not 100% sure because I didn't see much of the game. But John Rice Plumlee left. Did he get hurt or was he playing bad and he got benched? That's number one.
Mhm.
So did he get hurt or did he get benched?
I think he got benched, but
Okay. But the thing is, though, is that the problem with a team like UCF, and we've seen Navy and Army beat teams like this before, but when you have a team like UCF is all about having the ball and they're building momentum. When Navy has that ball for 10 minutes of drive, a passing like offense like UCF, especially with Mikey Keene in the game at quarterback, it just stalls them out. Because I did see the tail end of the game and they look flat. Like you see UCF playing in a shootout where it's like when they played SMU. SMU and UCF both play up tempo, throw the ball almost every play, and then the ball is going back and forth between these two teams every minute, and they're able to gain momentum. UCF destroyed SMU. Since they're playing Navy, Navy slowed the game down, kept the ball away from UCF. That got them out of momentum and out of rhythm, and that's why they lost, in my opinion.
well, let's not forget, even though they lost to Navy today because of Malzahn doing Malzahn things, they are still in play for the AAC conference title.
Mm-hmm.
Because, all they got to do is sit and watch the Black Friday game between Tulane and Cincinnati because they beat both those teams. Winner of that game is going to play in the AAC title game against either Central Florida or the team they beat. The reason why I say that is because that is if Central Florida loses to South Florida next Saturday. Now, is Malzahn going to beat South Florida, or is he going to blow that little victory against South Florida like he did against Navy?
I will say on the game,
They
South
should.
Florida's bad.
True.
UCF, they were a couple years ago in 2017, they were complaining that they should have been in the playoffs. Well, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah.
I keep talking about that, and this is the last thing we'll say, and we'll go to the next game. But my thing about UCF, about the 2017 team, I keep saying it over and over. Everybody talks about they should have been in. They should have been. No, they should not have been in. They didn't play anybody. They weren't that good. Auburn had a lot of opt-outs. Auburn was not actually that good either that year. UCF beat them. The end. They didn't deserve to be in the playoff because there were a lot of other teams more deserving. Cincinnati made the playoff only because Oklahoma State lost to Baylor. They would have been in over Cincinnati if Oklahoma State had to beat Baylor. It would have happened.
Mm-mm.
What do you mean?
Because the committee came out last year and said the reason they got in is because their resume had a win over Indiana, and the win over Notre Dame really secured their resume. All they had to do was win the rest of their games. They were in.
Now, in my opinion, Oklahoma State, if they beat Baylor, they'd have had one loss. They'd have got in over Cincinnati. Cincinnati only got in because every team behind them had 2 losses, and the only other team that had 1 loss was the team they beat, Notre Dame. That's the only reason why they got in.
It makes sense.
It's completely
It makes
true.
sense.
Because Cincinnati didn't deserve to be in. They just, everything worked for them. The dominoes all fell. That's why I said TCU is going to make it if they went out. And they didn't even have to have as many dominoes fall like Cincinnati did, because TCU's already in right now. If they went out, they're in. They're already in now. They're 4th. Cincinnati squeaked in at the end because all these teams had 2 losses. So many teams had 2 losses. They got out of the picture. And Notre Dame was the only one with 1 loss, and they didn't put Notre Dame in over Cincinnati because of that head-to-head. Because the Indiana win didn't matter. Indiana sucked last year. They were 2-10. They were garbage. It didn't matter. That win had no relevancy at all. So I agree. I mean, I was glad Cincinnati made it so the group of 5 debate would go away. But that's the only reason why they got in, was because everything fell right.
I mean, I know we want to move on, but first of all, Jackson, I am sorry. Thank you for bringing me back to earth. I did get a little over the top. Gonna try to cool it. Secondly, we needed to put a group of 5 in there at some point just to shut them up.
Yes.
Like,
because you'll never hear
what
them
is
again.
Yeah, what is it going to take to show you the group of 5? I mean, it's a good product of football if you want to watch a football game, but they're not good enough to be elite to hang with the big boys, and that's why teams schedule the way they schedule. It's ridiculous.
The best group of 5 that ever was Boise State back in the 2000s.
Yeah. The 2000s.
And they're dead.
Well, Cincinnati showed it when they played Alabama.
Alabama didn't even have their foot on the gas, and Alabama still beat them easily.
Because here's the thing. At halftime, Cincinnati was still in that game. Everything just started to trend the wrong way for Cincinnati. Cincinnati's the only one that's proven one, we can hang in there with the big boys. 2, we can almost beat the big boys. Because if Alabama doesn't have everything start to trend the correct way in that playoff game, Alabama still wins that game, but it's a lot closer than 3 touchdowns. 2, they almost beat Georgia the year before. They only lost on a fluke safety. Because all they had to do was drive so many yards and kick the field goal.
Georgia have, though?
That's true too. People don't,
it doesn't matter.
I just didn't even think about that on the fly.
The bowl games don't matter anymore. That's the only reason why they're doing the playoff. And it's sad. When I was younger, I know you guys did too. I love bowl games. I love New Year's Day. Those games.
I still love bowl season.
They're garbage. The best bowl game last year was Tennessee and Purdue, 2 teams that wanted to be there. This is the problem with football. The big bowl games don't matter because you had Michigan State play Pitt last year, and instead of having Kenneth Walker and Kenny Pickett on the screen, you had 2 no-name guys. This is the future for next year. I don't want to see those guys play. I want to see Kenny Pickett and Kenneth Walker, the guys that led this team to this game, play in this bowl game. They're not playing because of the fact, I don't want to get hurt for the draft. I think it's garbage, and everybody that made fun of Matt Corral for playing in the Ole Miss bowl game was ridiculous.
Props.
The guy, I give kudos to him for playing in that game. And everybody that said, this is why you don't play, please stop saying it, because all you're doing is ruining football.
Yeah.
You're ruining football.
To that point, a lot of players, the 2016 Fiesta Bowl, right? Jalen Smith from Notre Dame. Gonna be a first rounder, right?
Gets
Then he
hurt.
plays the Fiesta Bowl, winds up getting hurt. Draft stock goes down. That's what Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey saw. They're like, I don't want this happening to me, so I'm not going to play in this little bowl game. And I'm sad that these players don't want to play in the bowl game, but they're also thinking, okay, what's my best long-term prospects? If I play in this little game, like, say the Sun Bowl or the, Gator Bowl, then, again, it's sad, but, we're in this it is what it is timeline.
Well,
But the
and
problem
honestly,
is, go ahead. Sorry.
you're good. You're good. That's why that's part of the reason they started the NIL, is because these guys are thinking ahead to making the money. Well, why don't we give them like a small thing so that they can make some money while they're here? Because technically, before NIL, the NCAA rules were you cannot make any kind of money legally, period, as a student athlete. I don't care what sport you're in, you cannot do it. And so you open up this NIL, you give them an incentive to play in a bowl game because they're making money, unless, of course, obviously they're a senior or a junior leaving a year early. You make them play in the bowl game because they already have some money secured. And you may even be able to bring them back for their senior year if they're a junior.
True.
So, yes, people rag on the NIL, but if you think logically about what the NIL is trying to do for the sports, it's a benefit, it's a good factor, it's not a negative. So people need to process and focus on what the NIL is actually trying to do for the sport and think about it so that there's not, I mean, if you think about it and you still have a negative opinion after the conclusion you come to, more power to you. But in the end, the NIL is a benefit to these athletes because they're like, okay, if you're not going to pay me to put my life and body and heart and soul on the line for some sport that only you are getting enjoyment out of, why am I here doing this?
Sure.
If there's no safety benefit and there's no payment out of this, what's the point of me doing this?
Yeah.
The point I was making before is that I think that the playoff, I don't dislike the playoff, but the problem is that before the playoff, everybody wanted to play in bowl games. But then when they propped up the playoff to the point where it's the only thing that matters, and a lot of these players thought that these other bowl games don't mean anything anymore because we didn't make the playoffs. So it made these bowl games mean less to a lot of these players because the playoff is the only thing that mattered. And that stinks to me because again, I like watching these bowl games, and that was supposed to be your goal, that you played this whole season and you earned this trip to this bowl game in Florida or somewhere. Like, this is your reward, and now it don't matter because you didn't make the playoff. And on your point about NIL, I do agree. I like the fact these players are earning money. They do deserve it because they're working really hard. The only thing I don't like about NIL is the fact that you have all these schools that are able to give these players so much NIL, and it just raises the ceiling considerably harder, where teams that, like this one, they can't give NIL to players like that. It makes Ohio State even easier to beat Indiana.
Well,
it makes it even easier for Alabama to beat Missouri or Vanderbilt. It just does, because those schools are not competing in that space. That's the problem. It makes it where players don't want to go to these schools anymore at all.
Right. And see, on that point, that's the only, sorry, Jackson, that's the only struggle that the NCAA has currently with the NIL itself. They have other struggles like the playoffs, but with the NIL itself, that is the biggest struggle. They need to sit down in the stupid front offices at wherever, just like they do for the committee for the playoff, and decide, okay, what is our NIL limit for the year? Like, here's what you can make. Once you make that, you're done. I don't care if you need the extra money for whatever, you're done. They basically are at the point they need to start running these universities like professional programs. Why do you think the NBA, the NFL, the NHL all have a cap? Or at least I know the NFL does. I don't know about the rest of them.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's always talk about, oh my God, we can't pay this guy what he deserves to be paid because we're going to go over our cap limit? There needs to be a limit set for the NIL that these teams are dishing out. When you have the problem that you're talking about, Jeffrey, when you don't have any control under the NIL and you're just dishing out all this money everywhere. Like, hey, free money. You want money? You get money. You want money? You get money. It's like Oprah being the head of the NIL right now. Just money for everybody.
Look at Stanford. Look at Stanford. I mean, they're a program that they were never good, but then you had Jim Harbaugh and then you had David Shaw. And it's like you watch the NFL and you hear offensive lineman so-and-so from Stanford. They're still in the league. They're eventually going to age out. But all those guys that Stanford used to have, Christian McCaffrey would have never gone to Stanford today. Christian McCaffrey was at Stanford because there was no NIL. Yeah. Christian McCaffrey went to Stanford because he's a smart kid, and that Stanford was a good option for his brain as well as the field, and they had good linemen to block for the guy. Tanner McKee he's on the ground more than he's standing up. Because Stanford's offensive line is garbage. Why? Because they can't recruit anymore. NIL has destroyed a program like Stanford. The academics are too high. The NIL, you can go to Alabama and make more money than you can at Stanford because they're not giving it to them. And the transfer portal, like Tony's pointed out a million times over at the Pac-12 show, they can't give money. They can't give the year to Stanford because when you've passed that the senior level, you can't do the graduate program or whatever. You got to leave. So all this stuff is at play is against Stanford. And that's why Stanford's no good anymore. Stuff like NIL hurts programs like Stanford. And that to me is what I don't want. I don't want to see like a point where only 20 teams are just elite and then every other program's garbage because NIL, you can't compete. If you have the money, you do. And if you don't, you don't. And that's it.
Yeah.
There's even been people talking about doing this soccer format like the Premier League where you have like these. I've heard this before. You put like the top 30 teams in a league and then all the other ones are in the bottom league. And like, that's garbage. That is just complete stupid. Garbage. Yeah, I think it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
You think the sport's bad now with everything it's formatted and set up with? That's just going to ruin everything. Just leave what you have. Think properly with your head and build off of what you have to correct the mistakes that you've made. And just produce good entertainment, good quality, teams, and let us enjoy our sport that we love. Why else would we be sitting here talking about all this?
There's got to be a way to balance NIL to the point where it's going to help teams like Ohio State and Alabama that already have massive fan bases and that, have great coaching staffs and all and have, all that kind of stuff. But it also not to the point where teams that are worse than them can't compete with them anymore. That's where you got to be able to reach a point.
Well,
not only for the next game, sorry, Jackson, because we've gone off the rails and everybody's probably like wanting us to shut up about NIL because like this is recap in the games, not NIL.
I think we went on for 30 minutes about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry because I could have gone for an hour and a half. Sorry, Mike about it, but Indiana beat Michigan State. Indiana beat Michigan State in double overtime.
I was wondering when we get around to it.
It took a change in quarterback.
Jeffrey, welcome to Club Dub.
It took a change in quarterback. It took weather, as Buckeye Mike talked about earlier. Weather changed the game. Weather. You saw there was snow, and Dexter Williams was inserted at quarterback. He ran the ball all over the place. They benched Connor Bazelak because Indiana's offensive line can't protect him. They put in a running quarterback, and Indiana found a way to win. Tom Allen was running around like he did in 2020, tackling people almost. Yeah. Maybe not that excited, but he almost did. It was a great win for Indiana. They got the spittoon, one of the greatest trophies ever. You spit in it. It's awesome. What do you guys think about that game?
Rethinking that $95 million 10-year extension for Mel Tucker? That's what I'm wondering.
Oh, yeah.
Because like that's yeah, I know it was a great year in 2021, but let's not overreact.
Well, it's kind of like giving Jimbo the extension. I mean, you know, after the 2020 season or 2020, whatever, it's like you gave him an extension, and now it's like, oh, just to go on the Jimbo thing real quick, I have so many people tell me that Jimbo Fisher, like, he needs to be fired. It's like, you're the one that gave him the contract extension. Deal with it.
Can we go back and touch on that real quick?
Boise's Smurf turf too. It's so awesome. I love the Smurf.
I love it too, Joe. If you love Boise's though, check out Eastern Washington. It's red instead of blue. That is dope. But can we go back to A&M UMass real quick, because apparently they said the attendance was 90,000, and a bunch of people took a video at one point. There was like hardly anybody in the stands.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there was not a whole lot of people at Top Field.
Well, it's like Nick Saban. It was funny that one time when Nick Saban was like talking about, you guys got to stay the whole game. Quit leaving at halftime. It's like, why? How are you going to get fans to stay at a game that you're winning 63-0? You know, you're not going to get – no one wants to watch that when they could go to the local sports bar and watch all the other games on TV and have a much better time than watch, even if it's their favorite team, Curb Stop, Austin Peay. Who cares? No one wants to watch that game.
Yeah. I didn't even watch that game, to tell you the truth.
Nope.
I had to like get my dad to turn it off. I was watching a little bit of the game, and he was like, I was like, Dad, can we please turn it over to Indiana, Michigan State? They're coming back. Come on. Let's stop watching Alabama. It's like Bryce Young's not even in the game anymore.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeffrey, I got a couple things I want to say. First off, congratulations on the win. I know from talking to you and stuff that this is a good one, that you're really happy about this win, considering Indiana football is not what it once was, and you're trying to rebuild the program again. I think this is a good start. You beat a okay Michigan State team. They come and go too. But I will say that turnover at the end that sealed it, I was just so happy watching that for Tom Allen. He seemed like a kid all over again.
Mm-hmm.
But congratulations on the win, Jeffrey. Y'all deserve it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Did you see Ohio State, though? No offense, Bug, I might. It's like Ryan Day. They beat Maryland on the road, and he's talking like, yeah, it was a good win. We got to look forward to Michigan. We got to get the win. You know, it's like just routine. Nick Saban, like, you even saw like Nick Saban was like excited when they beat Ole Miss because they're kind of struggling a little bit. It's like Tom Allen. They beat a okay team on the road, an okay team, and it's like they won the Super Bowl. He's running around there like he just won $1 million. I mean, it is insane. Like, all I know is that's why I love football. That's the only reason why I watch Indiana, because I watch Alabama every week with my dad. I'm a partial Alabama fan too. But why I love Indiana is because they're a horrible program that not a lot of people like. And when they do get a win, it is just so nice to see when they win, because their excitement is what college football is all about. It just is.
Well, I don't know if this makes me the B word. Not that B word, bandwagon fan, but I'll have you know, I like Indiana when they don't play Ohio State, and I usually do root for them.
Mm-hmm.
That shirt is all for you, by the way. Congrats, brother. You deserve it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Second of all, yeah, Michigan State had a good 2021, but I think it was an F word, not that F word. Which one? Oh, yeah. I think it was a little bit of a fluke. Now, granted, give them credit. They won the games they won. They deserved to win those games in 2021. But I think that year was a little bit of a fluke. Why? They were loaded with transfer portal players. He won because of transfer portal players. Kenneth
Walker's a beast, Buckeye Mike.
Mm-hmm.
He's out there killing it in the NFL with the Seahawks.
That's what I'm saying. That's the point I was trying to get to. He lucked into the year he had last year because of all the transfer portal people. Now, as far as this game, where was Peyton Thorne even throwing that last pass to? The Indiana guy was just like, hey, look at me. I'm right here. You're supposed to be in green and I'm in white, but throw it to me.
Yeah.
He like threw it right to him.
Jeffrey,
Did he
what's
have a
the
clean
next-
pocket on that throw?
I think he did.
Yeah. Oh, that was like a big victory in double overtime.
I
Mhm.
guess our next game, I guess we'll do yours, Austin. We'll go in and get that one out of the way. NC State and Louisville. I'm not boasting here, but you were concerned about your Cardinals. And I told you, I said, I think Louisville's going to be fine because NC State, I know that Louisville lost to Boston College, but still, Louisville lost to Boston College a long time ago. They're still playing better football right now without Malik Cunningham than what NC State is doing without Devin Leary. NC State looks bad. And I said, I think you're going to win. I think you're going to be fine against the Wolfpack, and you beat them very easily. So, good win there. What do you guys think about that game?
That was big.
If I could start, if y'all don't mind, I got a couple things. I'll try not to go too long, but the reason why I was concerned about this game is our backup is Brock Dorman. He's a really good quarterback, but what he lacks in the mobile department is what Cunningham makes up for. Dorman, he could throw a beautiful pass. Like, he could throw it with the best of them. It's the fact that he's not mobile that worries me a little bit. And he takes a lot of sacks. Because in the game that he started against Virginia, he took 3 sacks that he shouldn't have taken.
Mm-hmm.
Where Cunningham, he gets out and is able to get the ball away. But today we didn't have to rely on him throwing as much because our run game was strong today. And when our run game and our offensive line are blocking like they were today, we got a pretty good chance of beating you. And the special teams has showed up and showed out. The defense is balling. We're like top 10 in turnover takeaways, points off turnovers. And we're top 15 almost every category now on defense. We're balling at all levels. Offense, we'll get there. We'll get there. But it's a great win. It's a great day to be a Cardinal. And I'm very happy about the win. And it's on to Kentucky. Beat them Cats.
Yeah.
Well, see, Austin, your point about them. Sorry, Jackson. You can go and say. My point about with Louisville, Austin, is that you just said about a mobile quarterback. That's the problem with Indiana. If Connor Bazelak is the quarterback for Indiana today, they lose. They're not winning because he's on the ground like Tanner McKee at Stanford almost every play. Dexter Williams got out of the pocket, made plays. That's why they won the game. As simple as that. And that's why you were afraid they lose. I just felt NC State was playing that bad that I thought you'd be fine. But Indiana and Louisville are fairly similar on offense. The offensive line sucked, and you need a mobile quarterback to win, for sure. Go ahead, Jackson. Sorry.
Yeah. I think Kentucky, next Saturday, better watch out for Louisville because I'm thinking Mark Stoops is a little distracted, too, with the coaching rumors.
You think he's going to Nebraska?
Oh, God. That would be a step down. I'm sorry, Mark. Do not leave. That would be a step down.
I don't know, man. Dominating the Big Ten West Division,
USC and UCLA?
Well, unfortunately, they won't be doing divisions in the Big Ten in 2024.
Well, it don't matter. I agree with Buckeye Mike. Man. I think Nebraska is a step down. They've been bad for too long.
Oh, yeah. They should switch USC, UCLA over to the Big Ten West. Because, everybody in the West Division, once again today, losing on purpose because they don't want to have to deal with Michigan or Ohio State.
So Purdue tried to lose to Northwestern then?
I don't know.
No, Purdue's
they may
one
try
I
to
think
lose
was
to
dominant.
Indiana next Saturday, so who knows?
Come on, Purdue, choke. Just choke, man. Don't
Please
even
don't.
play good. Throw 4 picks.
Here's the
Just give
thing.
it to us.
Here's the thing. If Iowa wins the division, it doesn't matter if it's us or Michigan. It's a rematch. It's a rematch. I don't want to see either way.
Yeah.
You're
let's
worried
And I-
about
and
a
I-
rematch between
No,
Iowa and
no.
Ohio State. That game's over. Ohio State's going to
Yeah.
blow the doors off
Oh
Iowa.
yeah, I mean,
You'd have a better chance losing to Purdue than Iowa because at least Purdue can sometimes play good. Iowa
Oh, yeah.
has no offense.
well, I mean,
Well,
the
here's
Ohio
the thing.
State versus the Michigan is the real Big Ten title game. So
How did we get on the Big Ten race all of a sudden?
We're
I'm
almost
just
an hour and a
curious.
half
How'd we
in.
end
We're
up
not
here?
even halfway through our games. I'm not as good as Jackson.
yeah,
at
we
moving
got
the
to get
conversation
to the
along.
next game.
Jackson should have been the one doing it. I'm the one that just sitting here talking about Purdue and Iowa. I'm just rolling here, man.
Sorry,
next-
guys.
Is Buckeye Mike is his team next, so we can talk about how they're going to win it all or something?
No. We'll get to that one.
That's
What
okay.
we got here? Yeah, sure. If I actually go ahead, we'll do Ohio State. I'm trying to do these in order. Ohio State, Maryland. This was a game that everybody's talking about. Oh, Michigan, were they looking ahead? But then you have Blake Corum as well. Was Ohio State looking ahead? The reason why this game was close is because Talia Tagovailoa returned to his complete top form. Maryland was a really good football team at the beginning of the season, but when he got hurt in the Indiana game, they're terrible without him. And then when he returned against Wisconsin, he looked terrible. So he balled out. He was back to his form, which sucks. He got hurt again at the end of the game. Hopefully he's all right. But Ohio State did not play a bad game. Maryland played a great game. That was a good game. Both teams played really well. So I don't think Ohio State looked ahead. I thought they played fine. But Maryland balled out, and that was a good game. What are you guys' thoughts on that one?
I will say that Maryland, that they played better than I thought they would, because I thought maybe Ohio State would, because I thought they'd have the mentality, let's just run them off the field and then we could sit everybody. But apparently Maryland told them to pack a lunch. We're going to be here a while. And they were.
Mm-hmm. I picked it to be a 2-score game. I had it Ohio State 35-21. And it was kind of close. Obviously more scoring than that, but
yeah, that last touchdown, that was pretty big. So you were
So Buckeye Mike, let me ask you.
Yeah.
What'd you think? Did your offense look as good and did your offense and defense look in sync today as you hoped they would, going against your rival next week, or is there still stuff to be improved in your opinion?
Well, as I'm sure Jackson can attest to, there's always something to work on every week. You struggle somewhere with something. I mean, the defense, actually, in my opinion, when I wasn't screaming at the TV, actually looked pretty good. Like I was telling the guys before we came on, Tommy Eichenberg, God bless his soul, played with two broken hands. Lathan Ransom broke his thumb on the first play of the game. And then when he blocked the punt with the hand that his thumb was broken. Here's an interesting stat, you guys, if you didn't watch the game. 50 points. 50 points between both teams in the fourth quarter. 50. Was that game a little bit closer than my liking? A little bit. I prefer games like that. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't like these like nail biters like it was in 18 out there. But I do not like these blowouts like Toledo, the 77-21. CJ, come on, man. If you're rolling out or you move up the pocket, there's a hole. Run. Just put one foot in front of the other and run. You're mobile enough. We've seen this. Do what you need to do. Put that body on the line. You're already making money. You're already projected to make more money next year. So just do us a favor and at least act like you want to win a national title this year. And All props to Travian Henderson because that man started the game and got hurt. I didn't like seeing that. I also didn't like seeing Tualia go down, like I said before, and I'm just going to say this real quick and move to my next point. I don't want to see any player get hurt. I don't care who they play for. And then just Dallin Hayden. Yeah, his touchdowns were kind of within the red zone, but I mean, that's the future of Ohio State running backs right there.
I will
So-
off your point about CJ Stroud. I do think that's an interesting point you made because you look at a lot of quarterbacks. Like I watch, that's why I was pointing out that smaller bowl games are almost better games now because the players are wanting to win so bad because like they know they're not making money. You'll see like this no-name quarterback give almost his life on the line for this win, this terrible bowl win because it matters to them. I feel you there. I think sometimes CJ Stroud doesn't give it 110%. Like Bryce Young tries harder. Like he's running all over the place. He's trying to win. He's still trying to win. It sometimes does look like CJ Stroud. It gives it 80%. I agree with that.
Mhm. It's like, did you watch the TCU Baylor game at all?
Oh, that
I
was
watched some
a
of it.
beautiful ending, man. That was a great game, you know. It
I
was-
watched some of that, and the announcers, because there was one play, I think it was towards the beginning of the game, Baylor quarterback runs to try to get a first down and leans in with his throwing arm
Mhm.
and gets hit on his throwing arm. And then the announcers are like, why would you do that? You're going to cause yourself to get hurt. Lean in with your non-throwing arm.
Yeah.
And then the next time he takes off, he slides. So it's like, okay, what are they telling him on the sideline? You give it your all.
Mhm.
I'd be telling him, give it your all. Do your best not to get hurt. Because I'm sorry, chat, if there's anybody in the chat. We are fans of a contact sport.
Mhm.
We love this sport. We don't love this sport for blood and guts. We want you to put your blood and guts on the line for us to enjoy the game.
Mhm.
But we don't want anybody to get hurt.
Mhm.
I feel like that's the main mantra of tonight's live stream is just there were enough injuries today. It's like, guys, we don't like seeing these guys get hurt, but let's focus on what happened.
That's right.
And Buckeye Mike, you know this better than just about anybody. CJ Stroud, when he gets blitzed a lot, does he seem skittish? Like he's hesitant to throw the ball. He kind of waits longer than he should when he gets blitzed more than he like when his pocket collapses. Does he seem more scared than normal than when he has a clean pocket and has all day to throw?
Well, when he
Because to
got
me
clean-
it does. It seems like
Well, I don't think it's that he's skittish because, like, when he has a clean pocket, he could read Moby Dick back there in a clean pocket before he throws the ball, which I think he does sometimes. But when the pocket starts to collapse, all he does is he sees a hole and he goes, and then he goes to the outside and just chucks it. No, CJ, what are you doing? And then half the time, if there is no hole, he just holds the ball and takes the sack. Chuck the ball if you can. If you can't, take the sack.
Mhm.
Chuck the ball to the sideline
Yeah.
at an angle so that it passes the line of scrimmage.
Off your
It's like-
point about a quarterbacks, you got like Indiana. Peyton Ramsey was Indiana's quarterback a few years ago. And that guy was an average quarterback, but he gave it 110%. He tried hard every single game. He took hit after hit. There was one play, it was against like Michigan where he ran, or Penn State where he ran for the first down. And he like windmilled in the air. He's taking all these hits, but he gave 110%. Penix, he got hurt, and then he still gave it 110% in the pocket. Like you saw in 2020, he's making throw after throw as he's getting hit. That Penn State game, he had like 3 throws on that last drive where he was getting hit. He let go of the ball. He took the hit. 2021, he was scared to death. That's why he transferred to Washington, because he'd had enough of Indiana. But Peyton Ramsey gave it 110%, running around the place, taking hits. Penix made the throws while he was getting hit. Connor Bazelak didn't do that. Connor Bazelak was skittish. He wouldn't take the hits, or he would get sacked, or if he could escape, he would just chuck it out of bounds. Dexter Williams provides more of the Peyton Ramsey type of play where he can escape. Because Indiana's offensive line has been terrible the whole time. Obviously, Ohio State's offensive line's better, but again, as Buckeye Mike points out, C.J. Stroud, every time there's a wee bit of pressure, the guy just bails and throws it away. That's not smart football for a guy that's way more talented than that. He can make better plays than that.
I mean,
And that's when his picks happen too. I've noticed that too. Like when he gets those pressures, he seems like I don't know if he's like, here, let me throw it into this ill-advised area and hope one of my receivers catches it or I get something. And that's when his picks happen. I've noticed that. Because in the Michigan game last year, he had 2 of them, I believe, 1 or 2 that were like that. And it's like, where are you throwing the ball at?
I think so. I mean, yeah, that's my point. He had, as far as I can remember, at least one that, thank God it wasn't an interception just because it hit the ground. The pocket collapsed. He saw a small hole. He gets through the hole, goes to the right towards the sideline, gets like a step from the sideline, chucks it downfield. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is there. He almost catches the ball. It pops up out of his hands. And the Maryland guys just start playing like hot potato with it. Because it gets down, and I even thought they like scooped it up. And then we started playing hot potato to take off with the interception. But if you go back and watch the replay, it hits the ground, and the ground helps him secure it enough to start to play hot potato. He needs to learn to get out of the pocket when the pocket is collapsing, to use your feet. We've seen him use his feet. Man can run. 52-yard rushing touchdown against Michigan State 2 years ago proves the man can run. His rushing performance against Northwestern this year proves the man can run. Whatever he has in his head to not run, that's the one thing that has made me angry with C.J. Stroud. The press conference after whatever game it was, and he said, I'm a quarterback. I'm not a running back, so I don't run. Dude, you have to run in today's age of football because you have to be elusive. You have to be a precision passer. Now, yeah, if you're somebody like Tom Brady, I'm going to touch on this real quick, but if you're somebody like Tom Brady, that's different. That's the way you're built. You've proven to us you can run the ball. So
plus he's
use
45.
both
If he takes a hit that's too bad, he's gone.
Yeah. What's the next game on the docket, Jeffrey?
Yeah,
I want to say
before we get to that, but off your point about it just seems like C.J. Stroud is looking toward the NFL. He's not there. He seems like you said, that was 2 years ago he did it when he was a freshman. He's trying to show himself, prove himself. Bryce Young is still making plays with his feet now. He's already been knocked out of a game. He's still giving it 110%. C.J. Stroud, if he does not give it 110%, Ohio State will not win it all. They can, but he's going to be the reason they don't.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this before we move on real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Would you classify C.J. Stroud as soft? Because I would.
You can say that, but again, I just think he's thinking about the dollars. I think he's thinking about he's
that,
a top 5.
That's what I'm getting
I don't
at.
like
he's
that. It's
soft
not about
because
being
he's
soft.
not.
It's just because he's more concerned about himself than the team.
Yeah, he's more concerned about the name on the back and not the name on the front. And you should be always concerned about the name on the front in college.
Well, the thing too, real fast before we get to the next game, what Stroud his issue is when he takes a hit, that's when the downfall begins to start. It seems like when he takes that hit, it's when it starts big time. Like, and to your point, Buckeye Mike, could it be because he's soft and doesn't want to get hit? I don't know. That's not for me to say, but it just seems like when he gets hit, it's when it starts.
You're right, and it's not for me to say
that.
either.
It's ironic you say it because there was a player for Indiana basketball. Again, I hate referencing Indiana, and especially basketball. No one cares about that on here. But Rob Finney, the backup point guard for Indiana last year, he was their starting quarterback. He was a guy that if he hit his first shot in the basketball game, he had a good game. If he missed the first shot, he did nothing the rest of the game. Coach never figured it out. It just blew me away. It's like you see this guy every game. He misses the first shot or he turns it over the first play. He just shuts down. You might as well take him out of the game because his head's already shot. He was the most mental-minded player ever. That's why he's not in Indiana anymore. You have to be a guy where you miss a shot, you miss a throw, you get back off your feet, or you get hit, get a sack, you get up off your feet if you're not injured, and you keep playing. You can't let one play influence the rest of your game. You just cannot do that. Unfortunately, a lot of players do that. The next game we've gone from the old brass spittoon to another rivalry game with a trophy, the Floyd of Rosedale. Iowa, Minnesota. I picked Minnesota, and they blew the game with mistakes. Turnovers, just bonehead, missing field goals. They should have won. Iowa stinks. They're horrible. Yeah. And everybody's like, Iowa, their defense. This is why you pick Iowa to win games, not name Ohio State, because their defense. No, Minnesota blew the freaking game. They blew the game. They should have won. PJ Flex, looking at his team because they should have won the game, missed field goal. He's like, he throws a pick, and Kurt Ferentz is like, wow, I'm winning another game like this. How have I made a career off horrible teams that can't play offense, but I'm winning these games? I was terrible, man. That's why I'm saying don't worry about rematch. Ohio State, if you're in the Big Ten game, your title game, you're good. I was horrible. They're bad. The O is still gone from Iowa. It's Iowa because they don't have O. They're horrible. Yeah. That game was terrible. I was like, please, Minnesota, win the game. I picked you to win. Please win the pig. You lost the pig again because of your insubordinates. You blew the game. Terrible. So go ahead, guys. I'm done with that one.
Yeah, Iowa basically rode the boat for an eighth straight victory. So there you go. Big Ten West.
I don't have much to say.
Did you see
Brian
Ferentz? Did you see Brian Ferentz when the field goal, when they called a timeout, when he already hit the field goal? And then Brian Ferentz and Kirk Ferentz just like, what are we doing? I mean, Kirk Ferentz is a veteran. He's the longest tenured head coach in the sport, and you call a timeout when you hit the field goal.
Yeah, that was dumb. Icing your own kicker. It was like watching Jason Garrett, ice his own kicker, 2011 with the Cowboys against the Cardinals. That was just
dumb. I know that we.
Is it time to move on?
But I think we need to give props to Petras. The man almost completed every pass, I believe, or it was at least 50%. But he had
never had.
Right. He had 200 or 300 yards on Minnesota's defense. And again, like you said, Jeffrey, Minnesota had everything lined up to win this game. You had the ball at the end of the game. You had to run the clock out, drive down the field, and just kick a field goal. It's not that hard in Minnesota. Did you see PJ's face at the end of the game when they kicked the field goal? He was like,
I was just like, he just was mad. He was mad. I mean, you should be mad. You gave it away.
Yes.
I mean, you've got one of the best running backs in the sport that no one talks about anymore because of his injuries, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Mo Ibrahim is a great player. But my thing is, I watched part of this game, and I'm like, it's 3rd and 3. And you're running the ball to the outside with this guy. You have a better chance going up the middle than running to the outside with Jack Campbell coming around. And then he's getting him. It's like, do you want Mo Ibrahim hurt again? What is wrong with you? Why are you doing this to him? Stop. All you got to do is either run him up the middle or fake and let that Athan Kalakmanis or whatever the heck his name is run off the read option because he's kind of got legs. He's not Spencer Petriswood that can't run. He actually can move. All you got to do is just run the ball outside with him. No, you're going to run Mo Ibrahim to the outside. and let him get tackled. It's stupid. Minnesota, I picked you, but I don't know if I'm ever going to pick you in a Floyd of Rosedale game again because you blew it. You do not deserve to be picked again.
I have no confidence in Minnesota's quarterback this year. He literally had a pass right down the middle of the field to, I think it was his tight end. He over or underthrew him. Come on. I think it was dead on. Hit him in the hands, honestly. And then Iowa just like, come on, dude.
Oh,
You need to have better quarterback and better receivers, or at least people that can catch the ball. Because
The last thing on this game before we go, did Jack Campbell step out of bounds or not?
I think
he stepped out. He did. And they were like, he didn't step out. It should have been a touch. They were just wanting Iowa to score a touchdown, man. That's all the commentator wanted to score.
You know what it seemed to me like? It seemed to me like the Oregon-Washington game last week where they said the Oregon receiver stepped out of bounds. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the next game we got is a game that we expected to be a lot more high scoring, especially one team. And it was a low scoring game, but the number one team in the country got it done. Georgia, Kentucky, 16-6.
Kentucky covered the spread.
This was a boring game. Like, you flip it on, it's like, okay, this is Georgia, number one team in the country. And they're just like, they're giving a D effort here. They're like this. Like that. Like, this is supposed to be number one team. Let's pound them. Let's pound Kentucky. Let's just roller coaster and then flatline the second. No, they're just like, they're just barely showing signs of life. If Kentucky was good, they would have beaten Georgia. That's how poorly they played. They were horrible.
Here's the thing.
I want to say, what does this have an effect? Does Georgia lose their number one spot for this out of curiosity? Does Ohio State jump them at all?
No. Even though Ohio State did play better, no. You're the number one team. As long as you win, you shouldn't drop.
Well, because I know they've done that in the past where in the past where the number one team has won like really close and they drop them. Like they did that to Clemson a couple times. And people were like,
Clemson in the ACC.
Why'd they do that?
They're going to look at Kentucky as a quality win. Even though Kentucky lost to Vanderbilt, the committee's still going to say Kentucky's a quality win. Whereas Clemson struggling against Duke is not a quality win.
Austin, let me ask you this. Do you think Georgia's win was bad enough to drop Georgia 2 spots? Because the only way you drop Georgia is if they played bad enough to drop 2 spots. That way you can build the game as 1 versus 2 again, because that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
No.
So.
They're not.
It wasn't that bad. Yeah.
No.
They gave Kentucky a little more life than they should have, but Georgia still won at the end of the day. And their defense pretty much did what it was supposed to. So, no.
Can I touch on this real quick? So, Kentucky, in my opinion, shot themselves in the foot. You had 3 chances in the red zone. What do you come away with? 2 field goals. Your defense was good enough to hold Georgia to 16 points. Convert those red zone trips from field goals to touchdowns, you win the game. I think Kentucky is good enough to compete with the big dogs. I don't think that they have the mentality of like, okay, we're so close. Let's just at least try to go for it. He played too conservative, in my opinion, today. He played 2019 Fiesta Bowl Ryan Day conservative. You're playing the number one team, man. Just punch them in the gut over and over and over. Because eventually they're gonna keel over.
Well,
all
Georgia has to do now is beat
if
Georgia
Kentucky had a more
spot.
If Kentucky had a better offense, you're probably right. They would have probably scored a little bit more, but the fact that their offense was lackluster, to say the best, was what happened, and just the coaching of Mark Stoops, like punting the ball and not going for it as much as maybe he should have. But
Yeah, Mark Stoops. I mean, Kentucky. DeReal was talking about Kentucky. He'd be like, "Man, we're gonna stomp Louisville because we hung with Georgia." No, Kentucky's. My dad likes Kentucky both sports too. He likes both basketball and football, and I like them all right. I mean, I got again just because I root for Indiana somewhat. It doesn't mean I'm like, oh, I can't stand Kentucky like some of these people that hate Kentucky because they're Indiana fan. I'm not like that. So I'm not saying anything negative about Kentucky here because of the fact of I'm wearing this hat. But Kentucky actually has that. You're talking about Mark Stoops getting a head coaching job. He doesn't deserve a head coaching job. They've sucked this season. They've sucked. Kentucky's better than what they are. They beat Florida. I know Florida hasn't done as good as people. They start out the season really well, and I know Will Levis got hurt, but he's back, and they've just struggled. I think Mark Stoops, he's lost his edge right now. They're playing games way too conservatively. I agree with you 100%. I mean, they could have beat Georgia today if they had played hard. If they had played, just tried. I mean, doing what they did, they played like they wanted to hang with them but not win. They just wanted it to, hey, at least we were closer than most teams. Not as close to Missouri. So
and that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, you don't even need a better offense. Your offense obviously produced enough to get at least, 3 trips into the red zone? Like I said, convert those 3 trips into touchdowns instead of 2 of them into field goals. You win the game on that alone.
Mm-hmm. They've got a solid team, but they definitely underperformed this season because, and I'm not blaming on Mark Stoops, but he's played very lackluster play calling on his first team to try to win games. And you should not have lost to Vanderbilt. I mean, I'm sorry. Vanderbilt's still not that good. You shouldn't have lost that game. I mean, so.
Honestly, I think he's distracted by potential job offers.
Okay, Jackson, entertain us then. Where's he going? Where's
after his performance, where's he going?
Just think about it.
You're making Jeffrey upset over here.
Born and raised.
I'm laughing.
I mean, think about it. Nebraska, Mark Stoops, maybe. I mean, same thing as Lincoln Riley getting distracted by job offers. The reason why Oklahoma didn't do so hot that whole year last year, Lincoln Riley getting calls. And then that little press conference of the Bedlam, everybody's asking him, are the rumors true that you're going to go to LSU or Florida? No, I'm not going to LSU, Florida. But here's what he didn't say.
I'm not going to.
He was sticking around with Oklahoma. And guess what? The next day, he's at a plane to LA.
How much is Mark Stoops getting paid at Kentucky? I don't know. Do you know, Jackson?
Well, he's getting paid pretty good.
Here's my thing. I would like to say this. Why in the world would Mark Stoops entertain going to Nebraska?
Shouldn't.
They are a worse program than Kentucky.
But that's what I'm trying to ask. How much is he being paid at Kentucky? That's what I want to know. How much is he being paid at Kentucky?
He's paid $8 million
a year.
Yeah,
$8 million a year. I don't think it's that much.
Well,
my thing is too that I'd like to point out is I give Mark Stoops all the credit. He took Kentucky from a 2-win team to 4, then 6, then to 11, then to 10, to 9, and he's built this program up. You think he wants to start over? You think he wants to start over with Nebraska?
Here's the thing, Austin. That's not the point, though. You're right, but you got to imagine that look at Washington. It's easier to start over now. NIL, portal. Washington went from 4-8 to what they're doing right now with Kalen DeBoer head coach. It's not about Mark Stoops going to Nebraska to start over. He could turn it around if he gets the adequate funding from Nebraska to put a team together. That's not the problem. But why would you do it when the only way he'd go to Nebraska if he was getting paid more? That's the only way he would. And is Nebraska going to pay him more than what he's getting at Kentucky?
Well, that Big Ten TV contract money with $1 billion from Fox, NBC, CBS.
He's in the SEC though,
What about
Jackson.
that
The
SEC
SEC
I
No,
know.
TV
he's
contract?
saying,
Well,
TV
it's
deal.
saying if he would go to Nebraska, he's trying to factor in the Big Ten media contract if he would go to Nebraska. That's what he's getting at with that.
Okay. Okay, that's
here's-
fair. I understand.
Here,
But I'm just saying the SEC has the biggest TV contract you could ever want because they
Currently.
get all the spots on ESPN
Yeah.
and everything.
here's my question though, and I don't think anybody's thought about this. Jeffrey, your statement about the NIL ruining Stanford. Do you think Kentucky kind of has the same problem? Because if you think about it, all he has to do is build a better offense. If you don't have these guys wanting to come to Kentucky because it's not enough money, then it's the same issue as it is with Stanford.
Well, I mean, I don't know. That's a good point, but Will Levis did transfer to Kentucky from Penn State. So
Yeah.
they're still capable of getting players. And plus, Kentucky's NIL funding is picking up in football because John Calipari got mad about it.
Yeah, that was funny.
Well,
So
my reasoning
Kentucky's
for
not
State
Stanford.
heading over to Nebraska is Nebraska's a football school. Kentucky does not.
I mean, it's a good point. It is a good point. Kentucky, Cal got mad about it, but they are a basketball school. I you can say that. But in the argument about maybe in the future Kentucky might be starting to trail off a bit. Maybe their NIL won't be as good as these other teams. Maybe he will struggle more. Maybe that would be why he would go to Nebraska. But I don't know. I mean, does Nebraska want him too? Do they want him?
That's another key.
Who does Nebraska want? We're talking about Georgia, Kentucky, but now we're talking about Nebraska's coach.
Well,
but while we're talking about who does Nebraska want?
we
Who do they
don't know.
want?
Nebraska wants what everybody else wants out there.
And who would want that? See, it's not just about who Nebraska wants; it's who even wants to go to
So go to
Nebraska.
Nebraska.
Who wants to be there? I
Well,
don't.
people
Who
have thrown Matt
I mean,
Rule's
I would
name
love to
out
get
there.
$8 million a year and get fired and keep my money like Scott Frost, but who wants to be there?
Hey, Jeffrey,
So-
a lot of people have thrown Matt Rule's name out there a lot because look at what he did at Baylor.
That's a more
Nebraska
possible
fans have
idea.
hope that he could do that too.
That's a more possible idea for sure
Yeah.
because Matt Rule just got fired and he would be looking for a head coaching job. And Nebraska would be like, look what he did at Baylor. So, yeah, that makes a lot more sense than Mark Stoops to me. I think Matt Rule in Nebraska makes a lot of sense. Both coaches right now and team are in shambles for the team and his career right now. They both need help. Makes sense.
So, do you guys think that we could go ahead right now and shut down this? Oh, Primetime's going to leave Jackson State next year. They just finished 11-0.
No. No.
You think he's going to leave?
No.
Buckeye Mike, you need to watch that 60 Minutes interview with Deion Sanders, where the interviewer asked him, "Is there a job like if a Power 5 job offer came open, what would you do?" He said, "Well, if they paid more, I'd have to take a look."
That makes
That's
sense.
the part right there.
Well, here's the thing, though,
Money
man.
talks.
Here's two things. Number one, I don't think I could ever watch 60 Minutes, just to be honest. And number
Well,
two,
neither could I,
I'm
but
just being complete. I'm sorry, 60 Minutes. Don't ban Only Talk Sports. I'm sorry, but I don't think I could ever watch 60 Minutes. Every time
It
NFL
was
ends,
that
I'll flip
one-
the channel.
yeah.
But the
But it
other
was that
thing
one
is,
episode of Deion
You're
Sanders that had me curious. So
you're talking about
Yeah.
Deion Sanders, though, saying obviously anybody that's gonna be like, I can entertain more money. That's an obvious statement. But where is there gonna be more money? Right in his backyard, Auburn is gonna pay him more than Nebraska. And I'm not saying he's going to Auburn, but Auburn would pay him a lot more.
maybe
I honestly think
get him because of that familiarity with Atlanta.
Auburn is the likely place of where he will go if he does leave.
Matt Rule to Nebraska. Dion to Auburn, Mark Stoops nowhere. The end.
Yeah.
But since Georgia Kentucky didn't give us enough entertainment, Jeffrey, move on to the next game. Maybe that'll give us some entertainment.
Yeah, there's like no one watching us right now. Like it's all my fault. Plus, we're going live. Mark's still live right now, so no one's on. This is horrible. The show's in shambles. But
It's not
okay.
Hey, I mean, are you guys having fun?
Yeah,
other
I'm
than
enjoying it. I
other
gotta
than
go
my,
to church tomorrow, and I'm still up.
I mean, other than my little mishap, Jackson had to calm me down. I'm having fun, guys. I enjoy this.
Yeah. Yeah, this is awesome, man.
But we still got to get to these games, people. We have to shout everybody out.
I guess our next game is Oregon State, Arizona State. These were the late additions because we were like striving for games. This game, Oregon State wins in the desert for only the second time since 1972. But Oregon State,
The Beavs are on a roll.
Jonathan Smith would be a much better candidate for the Nebraska job than Mark Stoops, by the way.
That I could definitely see.
Jonathan Smith, he's not going to Nebraska, but he is a legit coach. That guy, Oregon State I don't like using dumpster fire because I think it's a mean term, but they were bad, but he's turned them around. They blew out Arizona State.
Honestly,
he was in need of a coach, and Dion's not going to Arizona State, by the way. He's not going out there. I don't know why people saying that, but Oregon State played really well.
Here's the thing about Arizona State.
They deserve to be ranked.
Here's the thing about Arizona State. Sorry about cutting you off there, Jackson. But Arizona State wasn't bad all this time because in 2019 they were 8-4 and went to a bowl game. It was when COVID hit and is when it all went downhill for them. Because you remember they were the team that beat Oregon with Justin Herbert in 2019 and cost Oregon their chance at a playoff berth against LSU. So Arizona State hasn't always been bad. They've just been bad these last couple years, and it's given their entire history a bad reputation.
Well, the reason why Arizona State fell apart is because you had Herm Edwards, and then you had during the pandemic or whatever, you had him, he recruited while, during the times that you couldn't recruit or whatever. Which, I mean, can we prove that Arizona State was the only one that did that? Probably not. But they get called out for it, and then it's like, we're going to keep Herm Edwards. Well, they start to struggle a little bit because half the team transfers because of this stuff. And then, let's fire Herm Edwards. Herm Edwards would have been fine if that had never happened. That's why he got fired.
Yeah, I remember there were reports when they played Eastern Michigan, there were a lot of the coaches on Arizona State's squad giving out, the playbook to the opponents from Eastern Michigan. And that was why Herm Edwards lost his job.
That's a dirty move, too.
Yeah.
But Herm Edwards is a good coach, man. I mean, he's not an elite coach, but he's a good coach. And the thing that's frustrating is how these big-name coaches get protected no matter what they do, no matter what scandalous scheme they can think of to help their team win more. They'll never get in trouble because they're winning. Herm Edwards, it was like he was not winning enough, so it was like, let's just shove him out the door for doing something where that would never happen to these bigger name coaches. I feel kind of bad for the guy because he kind of got screwed
too, but he's happy now at ESPN again. So there we go. Well,
I got the pick right. Yay. That's all I got.
That was an easy one. The next one, another Pac-12 game, a little bit closer. Washington State playing against Arizona. Washington State did what UCLA couldn't do. They beat the Wildcats. They took down Arizona. Washington State's been sneakily a decent team this year. I mean, a lot of people forget they almost beat Oregon. I think if they had have beaten Oregon, then Washington State would be getting a lot of the Oregon State love right now, where they'd be fringe top 25, plucky team. Since they didn't win that game, they're kind of on the edge of the radar. But they're a good team, and they played pretty well against Arizona. So what do you guys think about this game?
Well, Arizona is out of bowl eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Good season for them, though.
Yeah, compared to lately. Mm-hmm.
True. A lot better than last year.
Is it, it was funny, Jackson, by the way, and I'll bring this up for brief, and then we move on to the next game. I'm guilty for a lot of times why the games don't move along, but I love Mr. October. You know what I'm saying? That guy, it was one of the trivia questions on Ty Guy's show, man. Mr. October, Khalil Tate was a legend. He was he had his Heisman moment in October. Best quarterback Arizona ever had. Like he was running all over the place. He was throwing all over the place. And then that USC game happened against Sam
whatever
Darnold.
happened to Khalil Tate afterwards?
That game, they lost that game, and he was never heard from again. And then he got hurt, and his running ability got diminished, and he fell off the face of the earth. I miss that guy. He was just a fun dude to me.
I'll tell you why he fell off the earth. Kevin Sumlin. Had Rich Rod not been such a pervert, he'd been okay.
I'm trying. I don't know if pervert. I don't know. Is that G rating? If we good here? I think puke's a better P word, right? I mean, we all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get
Peeper.
pervert from that.
You guys still going? Impressive. Yes, we're still going.
We're just talking about everything. That's why we're still going.
Yeah, let's go on.
As far as this goes, I mean, yeah, again,
We love college football.
Yes, we do.
whatever happened to Tate? Because the only thing I remember about him was that impressive losing performance against Hawaii.
Oh yeah, the goal line. He got stopped at the goal line, man. I watched that game. I was like, Tate, he's going, and then he got stopped. It was like, no, and then he died. I'm telling you, he's dead. Khalil Tate is dead. Rest in peace to Khalil Tate. You're still alive. I hope you watched our show, but you died after that game. And I miss Khalil Tate. I wish he was in the NFL right now, playing for the Carolina Panthers, playing for some team and just running all over the field.
He couldn't even make it to the CFL, apparently.
I was going to say he might be in the CFL.
He couldn't even make it there, apparently.
Yeah.
That tells you how bad he really was.
No, I don't think he was bad. I just think that he was one of those guys that his running ability, he was able to run everywhere. He really couldn't throw that much, but since people had to respect his running ability so much that he was able to make throws off of that. And when he got hurt a couple times and his running ability got diminished, and it just showed he couldn't throw. He couldn't throw the ball. That's why. It sucks, though, because I really like the guy.
Well, since we keep bringing this up, I got an offhand question for you. Because, again, I feel like when these players are good to great in college and then they're just like downhill or like, what the crap, you suck in the pros to the point
Johnny
you can't
football.
even make it in the CFL. Do we think they peaked in college to where that's like the highlight of their life? Or you think they just hadn't peaked yet and they just haven't properly been given? Well, like Troy Smith. Troy Smith is a prime example, in my opinion. Love you, Troy. Was happy to meet you in person at one time. But he was amazing, in my opinion, in college. Especially when he lit you guys up.
Everybody,
then-
every
and
Ohio
then-
State team lights Indiana up, by the way. They haven't beat us since
I know.
87. They're not
know.
gonna. I might be dead by the next time Indiana beats Ohio State. All right. I mean, I'm not even gonna be here. Penix was the chance. You had a chance.
Yeah, you did.
You had Gus Johnson go, Frofogel. It was like, he's losing his mind. Frofogel was down the sideline, down Indiana. I was like jumping around. I love you, Gus Johnson. I love you to death because you are one of the greatest commentators of all time that you can actually get so excited you lose your voice for Indiana. Like, nobody else does that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, Indiana's making it interesting. Ohio State needs to stay in the college football playoff. Right? No, this guy's like, Frofogel. Like, I love Gus Johnson so much. Anybody that talks bad about Gus Johnson, how do you not like this guy?
I
He's
love
one of the best
Gus.
commentators of all time. He's
Gus
got running away
and-
from the cop speed, stuff like that. Those are great lines, man.
Gus and Joel are the best commentator pairing in college football today. But it's like
Brian Kirk.
it's like Troy Smith won the Heisman his last year in college. He got drafted, but he only lasted like 4 years, if that. And then he went to the CFL, and then he was done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy, man. The next game, and I'm so glad we finally got to this game.
Stanford.
The play
Oh my God.
of the ages, 40th anniversary of the
Oh,
play.
heaven's sake.
Thank
There's
you,
one
Jackson, for pointing this game out. It needs to be remembered forever. Go ahead, Buckeye Mike. What do you got?
there's one thing I want to talk about from this game. What the heck was Stanford thinking? Game is over. We're down 10 points. We're going to trot our kicker out there and hit a 61-yard field goal.
He made it.
And he made it. Good job. But, I mean, really? You shoot for the end zone. You don't kick a field goal.
See, David Shaw was trying to use his academic Stanford brain, and he was like, wait a minute. Let's kick this 61-yard field goal. Like, I'm keeping up with this game. I'm serious. Like, I don't have the Pac-12 network, so I couldn't even watch this game. And I'm like keeping up with it on here, and I'm like, okay. It's like they're at like the 44-yard line. And I'm like, wait, I'm just keeping up, and I'm like, whoa, how did he get 3 points? I'm like, whoa, man. I'm like, he's trying to use his head. That Stanford brain. Oh, I'm going to kick this, and then we're going to get the onside kick and win. You're not Tennessee
He did it
against
backwards.
Indiana, Stanford. You're not. Your players are so slow out there. They're not going to get that onside kick. Like, it kills me. No one on Stanford's team is quick. Everybody's slow. The receivers are slow. The quarterback's slow. The defenders are slow. Everybody just looks slow. It's almost like they're in the classroom more than they're training. They're not training to win the game. That's why they're 3-8, dude. They move like this.
It's nothing like
There's no peak like Georgia like this. It's just flat line, barrel
It's
like
just flat line.
You're driving like 10
But
miles an
yet,
hour.
they
to
beat
up
Notre
Fort
Dame.
Granada. That's what you're doing.
You know, Austin, that's probably going to be the highlight of the season. We sucked like sewer water, but we beat Notre Dame. Yeah.
Last year they beat Oregon.
I'm sorry, Will, if you're watching. We love you, brother. You're a part of the show, but we got to point out facts. You got your butt handed to you by Stanford. Sorry.
And Marshall.
Oh, by the way, I did remember because we were talking about Paxton Lynch last night. Jackson was right. Mr. Irrelevant that year was Chad Henne. Or not Henne, Chad Kelly from
I
Ole
was like,
Miss.
Chad Henne's old, man.
Chad Henne's drinking beer, mowing lawns these days.
No, he's a backup to Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City with the Super
Yeah,
Bowl
he's
ring.
still playing, man. I mean, it's like I love these quarterbacks, like Brian Hoyer. Like again,
They were
Brian
like
Hoyer,
average in
Hunter Long.
college.
I love how they're in the league, man, and they're playing for like 12 different teams, and they got like you got these players like Mahomes has already passed them in stats. It's like they're in the league for like 16 years and they got no stats, man. It's just so funny. It's like a professional quarterback that's played for all of these teams. He was one of the best players to ever play in college. It's like no, like I guess Brian Hoyer's better than Ryan Leaf. I'll give you credit, Brian Hoyer. You're better than Ryan Leaf. Ryan Leaf didn't even make it like 3 seasons. And I love you, Ryan Leaf. I thought it was cool when Ryan Leaf did that game for Washington State in the bowl game that one year. That was really cool. But, man, dude, I mean, at least he wasn't Jamarcus Russell, though, that was like 280 pounds going to training camp. I love reading the Wiki article. It's like, they were like, come on, Jamarcus. We put a lot of money into it. We giving you a lot of time. You gotta train, dude. you got to stop eating pizza. And it was like, dude, the next year he came in even bigger than the last year. You're like, dude, this is why you're fumbling the football. Your hand is too big for the ball, dude. What are you doing? Stop eating. I barely eat anything. They would tell me to eat more, and they're trying to tell this guy to eat less. Stop, Jamarcus.
Exactly.
Well, let's get away from this horrible game, the horrible play, and let's move on to something that meant
Brand is all over the field.
Let's talk about Let's talk about UCLA USC. One of the biggest games.
Texas and Kansas.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
let's talk about that.
5-14 victory for the Texas Longhorns.
And what is there to talk about on this one, guys? Texas did what they were supposed to.
They're inconsistent.
Yeah. You guys know what that means. Uncle Lou has to flip the Texas helmet back over. Ah.
Yeah, just don't say that dreaded line that Joe Tessitore used.
Texas, if they had a play like they did today against TCU,
they would have freaking won.
They'd have won by 25. And they'd be ranked right now. And then people will be saying Texas is back. But instead, you blow it and you blow up Kansas and no one cares.
Yeah.
Can we all agree that was the dumbest statement ever made? Texas is back, baby.
Talking about Ellinger?
And don't get me wrong, I love Sam Ellinger.
Me too.
But that was the dumbest freaking statement ever.
Yeah, that we're back.
We're back.
On at Georgia, they beat Georgia with all their opt-outs again. It wasn't that impressive, just like when Cincinnati almost beat him. It wasn't impressive. And I'm like, when I saw him say that, I was like, Texas is going to fall apart again for that. And they did.
Now, see, the only difference is Cincinnati being a group of 5, it would have actually meant more. But yes, you're still right. I mean,
but I'm serious. If Texas beats TCU, people would have said they were back. I'm literally, they'd be like, they're back. They beat TCU. And why didn't they play better against TCU? Why did they play so daggum horrible? But then against Kansas, they just destroy them. I don't understand. Like, I picked Kansas because Texas lost to TCU. And Texas goes out there and does look really good. I know Kansas maybe is kind of fluky, maybe. But still, they went on the road and just destroyed them. They should have beat TCU.
I think they got to thinking about that loss to Kansas last year, and it really fired them up. So,
what gets me is
fired up for TCU.
Yeah.
What gets me is
get fired up for Baylor next Friday.
What gets me is Kansas was the one favorite, I believe.
No, Texas was the one favorite, I'm afraid.
That's right. I was thinking about the spread. The spread was only 9.
Texas is favored in almost every game they play, no matter what. You know what I'm saying? It
So,
don't matter.
So they were favored against Alabama?
Kansas disappointed.
No, not Alabama. I said almost every game. Like every Big 12 game, they're favored. Like TCU, they're favored by 7.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why does Vegas do this?
I will say on that Texas is back thing, after they beat Oklahoma 49-0, they were proclaiming that they were going to win out and get to a New Year's 6 and win the Big 12. Well, we see how that turned out, didn't we?
That's because Oklahoma's down. I mean,
well, they basically need Kansas State to lose, and they need to beat Baylor next Friday to make that second spot in the Big 12 title game. Onward to the next game.
Jeffrey, I know we'll get to this, but you did watch Bedlam, right?
Yeah, they beat them.
Yeah. How is Oklahoma down?
Because they're not a playoff team.
Who cares? As long as you're a bowl eligible team, that's all that matters.
No, you're saying it's impressive that Texas beat Oklahoma. You got to remember Dylan Gabriel wasn't playing. Dylan Gabriel wasn't playing, and Oklahoma was playing really bad. The backup quarterback, who I don't even remember his name because he's so irrelevant.
Hudson Card?
No.
Oh, you mean for Oklahoma?
Oklahoma's backup quarterback is not good, and that's why Texas beat him 49-0. I'm just saying Oklahoma's down per standard. Oklahoma's
Davis
still not a bad
Bevell.
team, but they're not what they were with Lincoln Riley. And they had a
Just
backup
like-
quarterback in.
Was it Gerald Booty that played?
Maybe
I
that's
don't
what it
remember
was.
who it was, man. I don't know who the quarterback is.
But
I'm just
it's
saying
like-
that it's not that impressive for Texas to beat Oklahoma like that this year when
No.
Oklahoma didn't have their starting quarterback in and they're having a down year for their standards.
Oh, yeah, I mean, this
So-
isn't the 2008 Red River, right? If it was 2008 or like, 1963, 1964, now you're talking. But 2022, that's not anything to brag about.
Yeah, I get that.
It's a good win, but
Um,
see, my problem with Texas is they're just inconsistent. Sometimes they play really good. They did against Oklahoma. They did against Kansas, but then they lay eggs like they did against Kansas State, and that was not Oklahoma State. Can't beat Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and they did against TCU. They just play like this. It doesn't make any
And
sense.
Texas
That
Tech.
Oklahoma State game, Quinn Ewers was like 19 of 50, and they were still in the game.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
I will say
that's
so-
on Texas.
The TCU game, the Texas defense showed up. If that's any consolation, it's the offense that decided, oh, we're not going to show up today. Well, we're going to let our defense try to win it, and we've seen how that worked.
Well, see,
yeah,
that's the thing.
the defense
have
showing
Texas,
up.
You have Texas scoring 10 points against TCU, but then they score like 50 or 40 or whatever against Kansas. And the next game, you got Tennessee, South Carolina. South Carolina scores 6 points against Florida last week, but then they score 63 against Tennessee. How different is that? South Carolina would have blown out Florida if they had to play like they did today, but they didn't. So again, it's very interesting. All I know is that Texas played really good today. South Carolina played really good today against Tennessee and Kansas, respectively. But the week prior, both teams played terrible. South Carolina and Texas did.
Man,
It's
South Carolina.
oh, go ahead, Austin. You're good.
South Carolina, they just opened the door wide open in the playoffs by getting rid of Tennessee. Now the door's open for anybody.
Yeah, it basically helps USC, which how many games do we have?
Well, here's the thing.
USC, Jeffrey?
The loser of Ohio State, Michigan still has a chance now because
Right.
they ain't going to be compared to the
As long
to
as
the
it's not a
SEC
blowout.
scheduling.
Oh, yeah.
As long as it's not a blowout.
True.
Here's my thing that's interesting about Texas between this week and last week. Texas actually broke the mold last week. Because what's the Big 12 known for? None of our teams have defense. And then we come out last week and we get the 17-10 that, like, in most cases, for Big 12 games, people would consider garbage. No. I was actually happy to see something like that because they're known for not having defenses across the board. It's like Texas is saying, hey, yeah, I think we're transitioning so that we are ready, in the lowercase r, ready for SEC when we move over. We need to show we have a defense. Otherwise, we're just taking up space in a conference.
And by the way, Austin, I said this before we went live and you weren't here yet, but what I said about the point of the loser of the Ohio State-Michigan game getting in, only 2 more dominoes that need to fall for that to happen. If you have TCU win out, just for the argument that they went out, the Georgia's in if they went out, then Ohio State is in if they beat Michigan. We'll just say it like that. And then TCU's in if they went out. The only thing that you would have to have, just assuming LSU lost to Georgia, USC has to lose a game. If USC wins out, they will get in over Michigan with 1 loss. But if USC loses and they have 2 losses, LSU loses, they're out. Tennessee's already gone. Alabama's already gone. Then your final 4 is going to be Georgia, Ohio State, TCU, Michigan. That should be your 4 teams. USC has to drop a game because they're going to put in USC over Michigan. My argument to Tony and Tim on the Pac-12 show, I thought Tennessee might get in over USC just because it was the SEC and they only had 1 loss, but they're gone. So that doesn't matter anymore.
Nope. I don't
Well,
know.
the thing that
something-
I want to see is the committee. Buckeye Mike, I know you don't want to hear this, but I would like to see Ohio State and USC be the two that are left on the outside. I want to see the committee make that decision. Like, do we put our favorites Ohio State in, or do we put the Pac-12 champions in? I just want to see them make that decision.
That's pretty good.
That's a good point. Honestly, if something like that would happen, I'd be okay, because I think the Rose Bowl is not a playoff game this year. So you know what? All right, we'll come out to you, Lincoln Riley, and then we'll take this foot and shove it down your throat. The cleanest way I can put it. But I mean, at the end of the day, when it comes to the bowl games, I'm just looking for some good football.
Mm-hmm.
The Rose Bowl last year had me on the edge of my seat the whole time.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Desmond Howard, the guy that I'm not, unfortunately,
Yes.
Utah almost beats Ohio State. They had a lot of opt-outs. Then everybody's like, Utah deserves to be in the playoff consideration from week 1 of this season. And I'm like, Utah lost a lot of players from their super seniors that they had. They lost a lot of players. They lost to an Ohio State team that had a lot of opt-outs. So in my mind, Utah was never a playoff team. Simple as that.
Can we touch on that real quick? Because I'm of the firm belief one of the main reasons Michigan won the game last year is because of having super seniors. Now, yes, before the chat, if there is even a chat, explodes on me, I realize Ohio State had super seniors too. But the difference is Ohio State had super seniors where it didn't matter. You had super seniors like on the offensive line or the defensive line or riding the bench. Aiden Hutchinson, I believe, was a super senior. Ojabo, I think, was a super senior. Freaking, what's his name? The running back from last year that's not there. I think he was a super senior. So
Haskins.
when you have, Haskins, when you have super seniors in the spots where it changes the game and it makes a difference, kind of favors you.
Was the weather bad in that game?
What?
It was,
Michigan,
right?
Yeah, it
Ohio
was
State?
snowing.
It was
I
snowing.
thought it was, and that hurt Ohio State. I still feel if the weather was good, and I know if there is a chat like Buckeye Mike said, if there's a chat, don't get mad because I'm not simping for Ohio State. I got Indiana hat on. I don't dislike Ohio State.
Jeffrey,
I really don't dislike any team, really. I just
Me
watch
either.
football, and I just don't want to talk about his team.
Jeffrey,
so it's like, whatever. But my
Jeffrey,
point
it's going
is,
to be when people watch this tomorrow is when they're going to get you. Go ahead.
but my point is that Ohio State struggling in that game. I keep saying people don't understand. It's like weather matters. The weather affected Ohio State because they're a passing team. It's harder to throw the ball in bad weather. Michigan was more of a running team. They leaned on that in that game. That's why they won. Indiana won because Tom Allen used his not Stanford education, but Indiana education. He was like, wait a minute, Connor Bazelak throw. There's snow out there. We lose if we play Connor Bazelak because he can't run. Dexter Williams can run, so we put out running quarterback. We win game. Because Peyton Thorne out there trying to throw the ball, man, with the snow in his hand. And he's like, oh, let's throw the ball 40 yards over the thing. It's like over the receiver. It's like you can't grip the ball in the snow. You hand the ball off and you play 1980s football in the snow. Michigan did that. And, yes, the weather affected the Buckeyes last year. It just did.
Jeffrey, you just got to be happy with the win, man. You keep going back to it. Just be happy your team won today.
No, I'm telling you why
He's using
they
it as an
won.
example.
I know why they won. If Connor, I'm serious. I'm not simping for him, man. If Connor Bazelak was playing quarterback for Indiana, the game would have been something to the nature of 35-10. Game over. Indiana wouldn't have scored a point against Ohio State if Connor Bazelak was in the whole time. You got to admit, when Dexter Williams came in, at least Indiana was doing something.
Yeah.
It's true. I'm serious. I'm not making this a joke. This is true facts. This is legitimate facts. When there's weather problems, you got to be able to run the football. And Ohio State struggled against Northwestern because of the weather. They only scored 21.
True.
Yeah, like I've said, with that game, weather was a factor. You have to admit, weather was a factor. Is weather the factor that caused Ohio State to only score 21? No. They didn't. We still don't have a line that can block. Honestly, I think you just put a Band-Aid over it to temporarily fix the issue. And that is what caused it to be so low. Now, the reason I was down here dying laughing is because Jeffrey, my man, was above me talking to the chat like they're 5-year-olds. That is hilarious.
I'm not trying to. I'm not a know-it-all or some guy that knows.
No, I'm not saying
like
you are.
I'm just suggesting to people that they're like, you got to take facts into consideration. Us in the college football community, a lot of us talk bull about all of our teams. We talk bad about all of our teams. All you got to do is understand facts. And when an Ohio State fan says that weather affected a game, and it's a true fact, Michigan fan, please don't trash Ohio State fan for saying something that is legitimate. Mm-hmm. Indiana won today because of the weather, and Tom Allen just chose to go with a running quarterback. That might actually save Indiana in the future, because I think we need to continue to go with Dexter Williams in the future. But that's the point. You got to make decisions for your team based on what is happening on the outside.
Because the problem
change it up, and you're
here's the thing too. And I know, no, Buckeye Mike, you're not saying the weather's the excuse or anything. The fact in that game too is Michigan just ran the ball down your throat and said, "Stop us," and Ohio State never did.
Yeah,
and
because that's the other thing is, sorry to cut you off, Austin, but that's the other thing. If we had Nick Saban for that game, we would have adjusted. Ryan Day went into that locker room and basically said, "We're doing okay." No, you're not. You gave up an opportunity at the end of the first half of that Michigan game last year to score a touchdown. You kicked a field goal. You were like 30 yards from the end zone. Take a shot. Ryan Day did not adjust at halftime. And that's part of the problem why it's like a stat I saw after today's game. I'm glad Ohio State did not score 30 points in the game last year, because Ohio State is 89-0 scoring 30 plus since 2014.
Hey, Buckeye Mike, do you think Urban Meyer is a better gamesmanship coach or Ryan Day?
Oh, this is going to get spicy.
Define gamesmanship. What do you mean?
He knows in the game how to with what he's got, make decisions in game on how to win.
Easily Urban Meyer.
I agree.
Because Urban would not have kicked all those field goals. Urban would have tried to go for the throat and scored a touchdown. You can be conservative, but there comes a point where you have to stop being conservative. And I thought that Ryan got rid of that in 2020 when we jammed our fist down Clemson's throat in the Sugar Bowl. Because what cost us the game, and the funny thing is, we still would have won that Fiesta Bowl the year before. Olave just broke the route the wrong way.
One of the most irritating things for me when it comes to people talking about going for it on fourth down, and this is cliche, so it's not like I'm bringing anything up new, but I can't stand when people, you go for it on fourth down and you get it, and then it's like, what a play call. He made the right call to go for it. And then when you don't get it, then it's like, oh, that was a terrible call. He should have never, dude, there are certain times in a game where it doesn't matter whether, it's more of, if kind of like Indiana, there was a play in one of their games, I think it was against Penn State, where Indiana tried to run up the middle on 4th and 1. And everybody was like, why did Tom Allen go for it? He should have punted. We're only down 7. No, I wasn't mad that he went for it. I was mad with the play call. Your offensive line's terrible. Why run up the middle? Run to the outside or throw a short route and go. You should have never run up the middle when you can't even get a yard on the ground against Penn State. I wasn't mad that he went for it. I was mad that what the play was called. So everybody was mad that he went for it. It has nothing to do with that. He should have went for it. You can't say it was a bad call because they didn't get it. It was what was called.
Let's make a quick 4th down comparison because where on the field was that at?
I'll be right back.
The 40.
Which 40?
Penn State's.
Guys, if there's any chat, that would have been the right call to make to go for it. The one that really irritates me and turns my brain to mush is Dan Lanning's 4th down that he went for at his own 34-yard line. Like, come on.
I'd like to point this out. Okay, so if you get a 4th down, people say that coach an offensive genius. Genius, like they did it with Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma when he went for it against Oklahoma State and he got it on a 4th and 2, and they're like, Lincoln Riley is an offensive genius. And then the next week he goes for it and doesn't get it in. They're like, he can't call plays. They need to get rid of him now. And he does this at USC too, and people at USC are doing it to him. And I don't get it. Like either he's a genius or he's not. Make up your mind.
It's like the 4th down against Rutgers for Ohio State. That one where Mirko just out of the blue ran for the 1st down because the right side was completely open. Guys, something like that, Ryan Day is not a mastermind genius for having him do that. He was going to punt the ball, but then he looked up and said, oh, green grass, all the way down the sideline for like 30 yards. Let me run because I can run decently. So let me run and try to get the – Yes, that's my point. But then they're like, Ryan's a masterpiece, mastermind, genius.
It's kind of like Alabama when you got like Bryce Young, and they'll talk about Nick Saban is a genius. He didn't go to Stanford. And then you got Bill O'Brien. He's a genius, which a lot of them won't say that because, Bill O'Brien's trash. We can't blame Saban for anything, so it's Bill O'Brien. But my thing that blows me away is you'll have Alabama. You got a scripted play. Bryce Young fakes a handoff. He's supposed to throw the slant route. It's not there. Play breaks down. Bryce Young runs all over the place and is the Houdini, as Brad Nessler calls him on CBS. And then he throws it down 50 yards. And Nick Saban's a genius. How is he a genius? The play was broken down. That was all Bryce Young. All personal. It was all him. It wasn't coaching. It wasn't anything. It was Bryce Young making a heck of a play out of nothing. And then people will tell me that Nick Saban is the greatest coach of all time. That's not a Nick Saban play. That's not a Bill O'Brien play. That's a nothing play. That was a Bryce Young play.
Yeah, it's like you said.
And Jeffrey, and it goes for the defense too. Like people say when defenses make great stops, and they're like the coach, he's a defensive mastermind. No, because in the Alabama Texas A&M game, Haynes King, who threw the corner route, that was wide open. And people gave Nick Saban the praise that he brought the safety up to get it. No, that was because the safety realized that was going to be the route, and he came up and broke it up. And people wanted to give Saban the credit since he called the defensive play. Mm-hmm. And it happened to be the safety who made the play because he realized, hey, they're going to throw this little dig, and they only need this 3 yards now. Mm-hmm. And he recognized and broke it up. And that's how Alabama survived the day. So it goes both ways if you think about it.
I mean, what I always tell my dad, I will always say, because, again, I watch every Alabama game with my dad. And my dad he'll talk about Nick Saban and what he's able to do. But you think about Alabama. And what if Nick Saban was coaching Indiana's players? There's no way in heck the guy would win a championship with Indiana's players. There's no way. I mean, you can't suggest that Nick Saban could coach Indiana's players and lead them to a national title or get them to a major bowl game. Can't happen. It won't happen. Nick Saban is a great coach. I'm not saying that. He is a great coach. I'm not taking anything away from him. But if Nick Saban was coaching Indiana's players, he would not be able to win anything. The reason why Nick Saban wins is because he is a good coach, but he also has elite players. He's able to recruit top 5, top 10, top 15, top 20 talented players. Indiana doesn't have that. That's why there's a ceiling to how good Indiana can be, because they don't have those players. Tom Allen will never be able to win 11 games with what he has.
Sure.
Jeffrey, what's our next game, bud? We done got way off track again. What's our next game?
Ole Miss, Arkansas. Same thing. People talk about.
Okay, so I've got a couple things for this.
People talk about Lane Kiffin, and they'll talk about how he's an offensive mastermind, and he is a good coach. But the thing is, I told my dad, I was like, Ole Miss is not going to beat Alabama unless Alabama plays a bad game, because Ole Miss does not have the talent LSU does. They do not have NIL. They do not as much. They don't have the talent that LSU has. So I'm like, Ole Miss, I picked them to beat Arkansas, but I was a bit skeptical because Ole Miss is not as talented of a team as LSU or Alabama. And I didn't know if KJ Jefferson was going to play. Well, those two things happened. KJ Jefferson was playing. Ole Miss is not as good as those other teams. Arkansas wins and Ole Miss loses. So
is Lane Kiffin distracted? That's the question.
I will say Arkansas offense looked pretty good today. I mean, do I think that has anything with the fact that Lane Kiffin's distracted? No. Arkansas just they're playing for their bowl lives, and they realized that Ole Miss was reeling off losing to Bama.
True.
And you know
that revenge.
I gotta give props. I will give props. Arkansas did play a great game. They almost let them back in at the end, but they held it down.
Yeah.
But
well, there's that revenge factor also from Arkansas. Missed that little 2-point conversion last year. And I can guarantee you they've been thinking a lot about that game. Every time they thought of Ole Miss, it was, oh, we lost that tight one.
Now, is it fair to say that this has been the best season that Lane Kiffin's had with Ole Miss? I want to throw that out there real fast. They're 8-3. Is it fair to say this is their best season they've had
last year
since he's been there?
Last year, Matt
Last
Corral.
year was better.
Yeah, they went to the Sugar Bowl last year.
Here's the thing about Ole Miss. I'm telling you, Ole Miss is not as talented as those other teams. They don't have what they do not have what Alabama, LSU, Texas A&M, which is why Jimbo Fisher is on everybody's kill list, because of the fact they've got way better players than Ole Miss. They just do. Auburn, maybe. Ole Miss is not as talented as those teams. Lane Kiffin can coach, but when you're playing back-to-back tough team over and over and over, a team like Alabama is able to withstand that more because they've got better players than Ole Miss. It reaches a point where Ole Miss runs out of gas as the season goes along because they do not have the talent that those other teams have. And Matt Corral, the reason why they were so good last year, even though they didn't have as much talent, is because Matt Corral was Bryce Young diet, where he was able to make plays out of nothing. And Jackson Dart is not. Jackson Dart can make plays, but he can't run. That's why they're not as good. The end. It's unfortunate.
Buckeye Mike, do you got anything before we move on?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay,
KJ
Jeffrey,
Jefferson
segue to our
Ole
next
Miss
game.
would have won. So I will give props there because KJ Jefferson is a great quarterback when he's on, and he played really good today. And LSU got lucky that he didn't play last week because LSU would have lost for sure. There's no doubt about it. My dad was like, why couldn't KJ Jefferson play? Alabama would have still been alive for the SEC championship game if KJ Jefferson had played. So, well, LSU would have lost and Alabama would have been in the driver's seat again. So it is what it is for Alabama.
What's our
It is
next
what it
game,
is
young
for LSU
Jeffrey?
and Arkansas. I guess we got Texas Tech, Iowa State.
Iowa State's out ball eligibility now.
I picked Iowa State because I thought Texas Tech is deplorable on the road, and Texas Tech is deplorable on the road. But Matt Campbell's Iowa State team is even worse, so that's what happened.
I should have heeded my
All
own.
I've got to say is Texas Tech won. They did what they were supposed to.
Yeah, they
I
won.
mean, that's all there is to that.
They're ball eligible too.
I have a question.
What's that?
You said Iowa State's not bowl eligible anymore?
Yep, not this year. They're not.
So do you think that by them not being bowl eligible,
South Carolina's ranked overrated Tennessee. Thank you, Chad.
Yes,
Thank
they
you for
did.
returning.
Do you think that by
63
them
points,
not-
Tennessee? Really? Like, come on.
Well-
Does your defense not have any pride? Or do you just not have one?
They never really had a defense.
Like, I'm
but
sorry.
They were just winning, man.
Tennessee belongs in the Big 12 right now? No defense.
I'm going to say
We're
this.
talking about Matt Campbell, though, right? Campbell
What?
Soup. Because Iowa State was not. They were worse than Soup.
So since Iowa State's not bowl eligible anymore, granted it's too late in the season, do you think that makes Iowa State more of a threat next week? As far as like, do you think because they have nothing to play for, so now they're dangerous? Do you think that?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not trying to get anybody to pick. But do you think that because they have nothing to play for anymore, that makes them more dangerous now? So do you think they could potentially win next week?
I will say this. Absolutely. As they always say, when you see, like, Iowa State, they're a wounded animal, and people think that hey, TCU's just going to roll in there and they're going to put them to sleep nice and easy. That's not how it's going to go, because Iowa State understands, hey, we can ruin their chances. We could be the team that puts their playoff hopes and dreams and put them away. We can end this discussion today at our own hands. And you know how much Iowa State fans would love that going into next year. They could be like, we were the team that stopped TCU. And it's just like with Michigan fans and Ohio State fans. They would love to be the team that takes your hopes away. Same with Iowa State and TCU. It's how it is. And yes, it makes them dangerous.
I agree with that. I agree with that, but it's kind of one of those things where TCU is going to have to play garbage. They're going to have to play really bad to lose to Iowa State, because Iowa State can't score. They're bad. I mean, the Kansas game was 14-11. The Texas Tech game was like 14-10. Hunter Deckers is not a lefty Louie here. You know, he's just not it. I mean, he's supposed to be this dual threat guy that's like, I don't see it, man. I mean, I picked Iowa State because, again, Texas Tech is a bad team on the road, and they were a bad team on the road, but Iowa State was a bad team, just bad at home. I mean, they should have won today.
So do you think that not having Brock Purdy anymore makes a difference for Iowa State?
I would kind
A
of
little
argue
bit.
more that because they don't have Brees
Brock
Hall.
Purdy.
Yeah.
Brees Hall was a bigger thing. I think Brock Purdy got drafted as Mr. Irrelevant. I'm not saying that he wasn't a good quarterback, but he was a quarterback
He
that
kept
was
them in a lot
benefited
of
by a
games.
talented running
You
back.
do have to say
Brees
that.
Hall was good.
But they did one good thing this year in the losing streak against Iowa. So
Yeah, that's true, but that's because neither team could score, and Iowa has improved since then on offense a little bit. So they would have probably beaten them today. And remember when Matt Campbell was going to Nebraska? Yeah, that's dead, because Matt Campbell is suddenly a guy that no one cares about anymore, like Tom Allen. Tom Allen was supposed to go to Florida State.
Well, I mean, Matt Campbell's still really good head coach, you know. But, you know, I do think he could bounce back in 2023. That's for sure.
Yeah.
With Dackers or another quarterback.
I don't know. Yeah.
I just think I think Texas Tech did what they were supposed to, and congrats to all the Red Raider fans out there. Y'all took care of business. Good job. Now
Jordan McGuire's doing a pretty good job this
on
year.
to the next.
Last thing about Iowa State, and we'll go to the next game. I did not watch any of this game, to be frank, but I was keeping up with it because I keep up with all the scores at the same time because you can't watch all these games. Iowa State was in Texas Tech territory almost the entire game, and they scored 10. That's why I have no faith in it. I mean, anything can happen. Football, again, South Carolina scored 6 points. They turn around, they score 63 against Tennessee. Yeah, Iowa State could turn around next week and beat TCU. Okay, it can happen, but how do you lose this game today? I mean, they were at the Texas Tech 11. They were at the Texas Tech 40. They were at the Texas Tech 25. It didn't matter. They had chance after chance after chance. And against Kansas, they had chance after chance after chance. They always seem to be near the end zone, but they don't do anything with it. They don't do anything. They just it's awful to watch. I'm not blaming Deckers completely, but I'm not blaming Matt Campbell completely, but they got some problems at Iowa State. They're just not a very good football team on offense, especially.
But here's the thing, and I think this goes for 125, 126 of programs in our league. There's only about 5 schools that, in my opinion, is never actually in a rebuild. Yes, Saban likes to use rebuild as an excuse. But most of these schools, once their important pieces from a class leaves, unless you have the next version of that person leaving, it takes like a year or two. I'm hearing my echo. Okay. It takes like a year or two for you to get back to where you were 2 years ago. Whereas you see like Ohio State, Michigan's finally come around, Alabama, Georgia starting since Kirby Smart came, USC at least used to be, where it was a constant, we're constantly 9, 10, 11, 12 win seasons year after year after year because the talent is not declining. It's staying the same. You're just altering how the player, like you're adapting from Justin Fields being a runner and a passer to adapting back to a Dwayne Haskins style, mainly passer. Please don't make me run unless I absolutely have to.
I will make the point though. Michigan had its couple down years in there, but I get what you're saying. Because there was a couple years they were like 4-8, 5-7 before they got back on the up and up.
Right. Well, but that's Rich Rod mostly. Some Brady Hoke, but Rich Rod. And it's because they don't know how to recruit properly.
I'm just saying that you look at Iowa State and they were 11-2, the 1 year, and then they brought everybody back and they were a playoff team in most people's mind. They were going to make the playoff. They still had Charlie Kohler, Breece Hall, and Brock Purdy. They went 7-6. This year they're 4-7. There's a problem. They're going in the wrong direction. They got to turn it around.
It's because of the replacements that they have. They don't have the proper replacements to make it seem like there's no fall off.
But even last year, they were still struggling, though, when they had the pieces back. They still underperformed.
But the pieces that you lost, they were starting to fall off. And now it's fallen off even more than it did last year. You had key pieces in certain places that you kept, but in certain areas that mattered, you lost the pieces. You had replacements, but you're talking about like the 11-2 2020 year or whatever it was that you're talking about. It was probably 5 stars in those spots. Well, they're being replaced by 3 stars, so there's a drop off.
That's a good point. I don't know if Iowa State ever had legitimate 5 stars. I don't know if they've ever recruited a 5-star.
I mean, same thing. Instead of a 5, it could be a 4 being replaced with a 2. It could be a 3 being replaced with a 1.
I hope he gets it turned around. That's a really great point. It's just interesting. Another point that Georgia Reload says he's saying Georgia's going to bring home the Crystal Crown. Real quick before we get to the next games, what do you guys feel about that? You think Georgia's going to repeat here?
That could
It depends on who they have to go through. Because if you have to go through,
I will say this. Go ahead, Mike. I didn't mean to cut you off. My bad.
No, you're good. I'll just quickly say this. If you have to go through Ohio State, there is no weather factor. Good luck trying to stop the deep bomb. And once you do, good luck trying to stop the run that we've now created. So good luck. But most likely you will. In all honesty, realistically, you probably will.
Yeah.
I will say.
Go ahead, Austin.
I will say real fast, I picked Georgia in preseason to repeat as champions, and I'm sticking with that pick. I still got Georgia because I think their defense is still pretty impressive, and I think it could stop just about any offense you put in front of it.
I thought it was either going to be Bama or Ohio State, but,
it could still be Ohio State. The only problem
– Georgia repeat to me.
The only problem is Georgia's defense is not as good as it was last year, but it's still good. It's just not at the same level that it was last year, which is crazy to me because, again, they still finished 8-0 in the SEC. They still swept the East again. So it's like when everybody had Ohio State up there, it's like, where's the slip up? What is going to make the difference? And these guys are going to get jollywopped.
Kentucky made Georgia's defense look good.
I will say they held Tennessee's offense to 13 points. Alabama's defense gave up 52. And Bama is known for defense. So that doesn't tell you a little something. I don't know.
There's two things that play about that, and you are right, Austin. I'm not disagreeing with you, but the two differences is, number one, Tennessee was at home against Alabama, and Tennessee wanted to beat Alabama so bad that they had a chance and they were able to do it. The Tennessee game was at Georgia, and I really do believe in the fact that Georgia played harder because they weren't ranked number one in the CFP rankings.
Oh, which brings me to my next point about Tennessee. They have officially become, as of tonight, they are the second team ever in the college football playoff era to start off the CFP rankings number one and not make it to the playoffs.
First, who was the other one?
2014 Mississippi State.
Well, you knew then Mississippi State wasn't going to make it. Yeah, because when Dak
was the year with Dak Prescott
Dak led them to play Alabama, and then they got jollywopped by Alabama. They were number one for like 3 weeks that year.
I think I might remember that. I mean, I was only 10, so my brain's a little bit, not as good.
Yeah, but then they lost
that far ago. But yeah, I think I might remember that actually. Dak Prescott. All I know is Dak was the guy. I said Dak too many times, and my family got sick of hearing it. It's like Dak did this, Dak did that. It was like it wasn't Prescott. It was just Dak, man. It was like,
hey, what can I say? The man is good. He just doesn't have the talent.
And Cooper Rush is not replacing him. No way.
No.
Well, that Ole Miss.
Hey, I'm a Cowboys fan, so I have to hear this all the time.
Oh, I got sick of it. I'm sorry to go off the rails again, but you had the people on TV. We're watching like Louisville or one of those Friday night games. It was one, I can't even remember who it was. It was one of those Friday night games. And the commentators were like, how about the Cooper Rush, Dak Prescott debate? It's like, for one, why are you talking about this on a college football game during a game?
How do you think us Cowboys fans feel, Jeffrey?
I was sick. I like the Cowboys too because, like, when I was a little kid, Tony Romo was my guy, man. It was like Tony Romo. He was the guy, man. I'm serious. And then it was like, I don't know why, but he was. It was like the field goal. Oh my God. How could you replace Cooper Rush with Dak? Or replace Dak.
Here's the thing, Jeffrey. I'll put all this to bed right now. We paid Dak all this money. He's our guy to get us to a Super Bowl. We're sticking with it. Cooper Rush did what he was supposed to do. He won the games while Dak was out. I'm happy. I'm proud as a Cowboys fan. We stuck around because Cooper Rush was good in those games. But also, you got to give credit to the defense. Our defense is top 3 in the league, arguably. So that puts all that to bed. Dak is the guy, and that's how it's going to be. He is what we follow as Dak goes. If Dak wants to take us to a Super Bowl, we will go there. If he doesn't, then we won't.
It's like Ezekiel Elliott. They'll talk about Ezekiel Elliott and how why does he get more carries than why does Tony Pollard not get more carries? The reason why is because Ezekiel Elliott's making a lot more of this than Pollard. Yeah. They're supposed to play him more. If you don't play him more, then what's the point of paying him more? It is ridiculous. Exactly. I actually think Tony Pollard should get more runs, but Elliott gets the runs because he's making the dough.
By the way, Buckeye Mike, thank you for Ezekiel Elliott, by the way. Y'all did do one thing right.
You're welcome.
Our next game, we've gone from talking about the America's team, Dak, Ezekiel Elliott, Cooper Rush. No one knew who he was before this year. Now we're talking about a Mountain West affair. Boise State, the best group of 5 team in America for the last 15 years until the last couple years. Boise State kind of falling off the edge of the earth a little bit, but they're still a really solid team. They went on the road and squeaked out an ugly game against Wyoming. Did you guys see the end of that game? The Wyoming quarterback threw 2 picks in a row at the end. I actually flipped that game on, man, at the end when the Tennessee game fell apart. And that game was a riot, man. It was like the Wyoming quarterback throws a pick. Boise State runs the ball. They fumble it. And the guy runs it all the way back to like the 20. Then Wyoming next play throws another pick. Insane game. They got an ugly win.
Well,
hey,
clinched the division with that victory.
The only thing I'll say on this game, and I guess it pertains to all the games, it's November. I don't care if you're Boise State, Ohio State, Michigan. I care if you're Bama, because why are you playing a crappy small school? Minus the point. Anyway, it's November. All you have to do is win. It doesn't matter. I'm sick and tired of this style points garbage conversations that we all have.
Take that with the AD.
I know. Part of it is the schedules are made like 10 years in advance. Anyway, it's November. All you have to do is win.
Mm-hmm.
There is no, they didn't. I mean, the only time the spread matters or the over-under matters is if you are stupid enough to waste your money and bet on this sport. It's your fault. It's your fault that you lost the money because they didn't win enough.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is win. I know it makes the product look bad when it's a crappy win, but it's November. All you have to do is win to make your resume look better.
That was a good game, man. I mean, it's not really fun watching South Carolina pound Tennessee. I'd much rather watch a Mountain West game with some snow falling, 2 teams battling it out. That was a good game, man. I mean, both teams were trying to lose.
I like a little snowball, too.
Yeah, that was a good game, though. Our next game is Syracuse and Wake. Syracuse is completely just bottomed out. They're not playing good football. Dino Babers going from 6-0 and now he's 0-5. Wake Forest got a big win for them. They haven't won in 3 weeks either. I picked Wake, and I don't know if anybody picked Syracuse here. I can't remember. But
we all picked Wake Forest.
Yeah.
But
I picked
Dino's going to get that big vote of confidence for 2023. So if you have to,
I will say,
returning for next season, they're on the hot seat.
I will say, when we dominated, manhandled Wake, it kind of broke them for a while, and then and I eventually figured they would snap out of it quicker than they did, but they bounced back after we got done taking them out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
they,
Jeffrey,
they
that was a game too that really surprised you too, because you figured Wake would take us to the shed, but we ended up taking them to the shed.
that's a good point. I mean, Wake Forest. What I made a video on this game, and I basically just said in the video, I was like, Syracuse is going in the wrong direction. They've been progressively playing worse. Whereas Wake, they just lost to North Carolina by 2, and I know North Carolina just lost to Georgia Tech today, so maybe takes a little shine off that. But I just felt that Wake Forest is still they look better than Syracuse, and they did today. They just look better than Syracuse right now. Syracuse is really struggling. It stinks for Dino Babers. He's still going to be the coach. He's fine. I mean, he did enough in the first part of the season to still be there. Syracuse is low expectations, but they've gone from having a really solid season to it being just an average, not very good season. I mean, even though for Syracuse making a bowl game is good, they've really fallen apart, and it is kind of sad to watch. We didn't pick Carolina, Georgia Tech, but what do you guys think about Carolina dropping a game to Georgia Tech and Drake May having the worst game of his Carolina career and Josh Downs dropping a touchdown pass?
I'm Drake May's
Jeffrey,
Heisman hopes waving goodbye.
You were
I
gonna
also want to know
Jeffrey?
on the last game real quick that the reason Syracuse has lost the last 5, or at least part of it, is because Clemson straight up snatched up their soul.
say-
You can't let
Jeffrey,
one
me
loss
and
turn
you-
into 5.
Huh?
Me, you, and
You can't
Jackson
let one
talked
loss
about
turn into
this.
5. Go ahead, Austin. Sorry.
Yeah.
Me, you, Jackson talked about this when we were picking games. North Carolina, Georgia Tech. We said this has all the makings to be an upset, and none of us three thought of it. And guess what? Georgia Tech said, "Psych, your playoff hopes are going bye-bye now too." Because there was a lot of talk that North Carolina, what if they went out and beat Clemson? Is there a chance that they get the dominoes to fall? Well, Georgia Tech just made sure to take care of that issue.
North Carolina never had a
Yeah.
chance for the playoff because their strength of schedule was terrible.
The only thing that would have helped them is if they would win the ACC against Clemson.
Does
I
Brent
still think
Key
they
have
Here's
a
my
shot?
thing too. I think that's what beat them is the fact that they looked ahead,
True.
and
They
you
looked too
cannot
far.
do that. I don't care what team you are. Like
Oh, go ahead.
they got lackadaisical. It was just lackadaisical, and just looked like they didn't want to play. Like they thought Georgia Tech was just going to roll over for them, and it's ridiculous too. Like never take a team lightly. Never do it. Never ever ever, because it always backfires in the end. Like it's just sad that North Carolina took them lightly. I just wanted to see UNC and Clemson both with one loss and see who, the winner of that, maybe possibly the committee taking them into consideration. North Carolina possibly getting in the top 10, getting a big New Year's Six now. That's probably shot, but
True.
Well, I mean,
my little rant.
If North Carolina wins the ACC, they can still get in consideration for a really good New Year's Six game.
My thing is North Carolina played a bad game, yes, but they still 4th and 11. Drake May's rolling out to his right, and Josh Downs, your best receiver, drops a touchdown pass. I don't know if you guys saw the play, not as good as the play, obviously, but it was a great pass. I mean, Drake May did his job on that play. It was 4th and 11. He was getting pressured. He rolled out to his right. He dropped a dime to Josh Downs, and he just dropped it. They would have won the game.
One question about Georgia Tech. Does Brent Key have a shot at keeping the head coaching job for Georgia Tech? Because ever since Brent Key became the interim coach, he is 4-3. Today was his 4th win as the interim coach.
Maybe. I think so.
But next week they got Georgia. So in the clean old fashioned hate. So you won't make it to a bowl game, unfortunately.
It's more like clean old fashioned curb stomp for Georgia lately. I mean, it's like, that rivalry's been dead since at least 5, 6, 7 years. That ain't been close at all. I mean,
think
back when
16
Paul Johnson was
last time.
coach and Kirby
Yeah, I
Smart
wanna ask
wasn't
you
doing
all
his thing,
this.
they was okay, the rivalry, but Georgia dominated that thing. But I like the name.
So we know the SEC championship game is set. It's LSU Georgia. Is there any possible look ahead at all for either side next week?
LSU could lose, maybe.
Kirby learned a lot from Saban.
I'm just curious if anybody was giving Georgia Tech an chance.
He's going to make sure Georgia's guys mind on going unbeaten.
Georgia's not North Carolina, man. I mean, Georgia's not going to.
I'm not saying they were, but
Georgia Tech's going to struggle to score 10. Kentucky scored 6.
I'm not saying Georgia Tech's going to beat Georgia. That'd be a stupid thing to come out of my mouth. I'm just saying,
I get what
could
he's
Georgia
saying.
be playing down to their competition? Could they be playing down like they did to Kentucky?
Could we see another Kentucky performance? No. I guarantee you, yeah, Kirby was okay with a win, but Kirby this week is going to chew them out. Like, this is Tech. I don't care that the rivalry is next to nothing anymore. This is a game that you gotta win.
For the state of Georgia.
This is for state pride.
The only reason why I say there's a chance LSU loses to A&M is because
they've done
it's
it
at
before.
A&M, right?
Yep, the last 2 times they've been at A&M, they've lost.
And LSU struggled against Arkansas, and they really didn't play that good tonight or last night, whatever is UAB. I mean, they beat them, but they kind of suck. So, I mean,
here's my thing too. I want to ask this, and this all has domino effect. If LSU beats A&M and then beats Georgia, could you leave them out of the playoffs as an SEC champion? What do you think?
LSU, no.
That's why I'm saying that when we're talking about Michigan, like if they lost to Ohio State, would they get in? Then Michigan needs to have LSU and USC lose, because if those 2 teams lose, then as I've said before, it's going to be Georgia, Ohio State. If TCU wins out, then Michigan. But if LSU wins out, LSU will jump Michigan more than likely. And if USC wins out, they'll more likely jump Michigan. Michigan has to have those 2 teams lose for them to make the playoff, in my opinion. That might not be true, but that's just my opinion.
And here's the thing, too. USC's already got a spot in the Pac-12 championship. They're safe there. They're going to the championship game. My question is, how much effort are they going to give to Notre Dame, knowing they got that game ahead of them, knowing that, hey, we win the Pac-12, Tennessee done lost. We win the Pac-12. We virtually punched our ticket to the promised land. And that's another one I'm just curious.
There's a difference with that. First of all, USC already has 1 loss. Second of all, it depends. It's going to have to depend on how much of a thrashing being taken behind the dumpster Notre Dame gives USC. After the performance I just watched on TV, sorry, Will, but I do not think USC will lose to Notre Dame. But if they do, they have qualified for the Rose Bowl, even with winning Pac-12, because USC is on the fringe, on the outside looking in. The only thing that secures LSU, if they would beat Georgia, Georgia's number 1. LSU this week was like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
LSU's going to more than likely bump into the top 4 or be right on the edge. If they beat Georgia, they're going to bump into the top 4.
LSU is going to be
Here's
fifth.
my thing.
Do you think this is an interesting argument? But do you think that Tennessee lost, so it's going to be Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU. Those are going to be the top 4 teams. Do you think USC jumps LSU? Maybe.
I thought USC was already ahead of LSU.
No, USC is 7,
right?
LSU is 6. It's because they beat Bama is what's putting them ahead right now. And the fact
USC
that
jump
USC
maybe
not this week because what their downfall is they're
the Bama win is going to carry them.
Defense.
Yeah, Tennessee was 5, but now they're not going to be 5 anymore. So that's going to be a big, vigorous debate.
Here's what I think it comes down to. So let's say we get to conference championship week, and it's Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, TCU 3. Who would we put in 4? Do we still put Michigan in 4? Or does LSU jump into the 4 and then USC slides to 5?
Austin, that all depends on how USC does against Notre Dame.
In the long run, it does. But if we want to take this scenario and break it down real fast, LSU would jump to the 4 because even if USC does win, I have a feeling based on that performance against a good team, it's going to be close again with Notre Dame. I don't see a blowout on USC's part. I don't even see a blowout on Notre Dame's part. This game is going to be close either way. Mm-hmm. So LSU is going to be the 4, which is also going to help them, as long as they win against Georgia, help them secure a playoff spot by winning the SEC. And that would then leave the Real's hopes and dreams of 2-team playoff alive, because it actually will happen again.
Okay, here's an interesting one I want your take on. So let's say Georgia wins, USC win. Georgia wins, Ohio State wins the Big Ten, and then that leaves 2 spots for USC, Michigan, and TCU. And let's just say TCU has 1 loss. Does TCU sneak in somewhere in there with that 1 loss? Knowing that USC won the Pac-12.
It's too late in the year.
If TCU's undefeated, then it's going to be Georgia, Ohio State, TCU, and I would put USC at 4. But then if TCU loses, then it's going to be Georgia, Ohio State, USC, Michigan, TCU.
Because it's too late in the year. It's 2018 Ohio State all over again. The reason we didn't get in 18 is not because we lost to Purdue by as much as we did. It's the fact that we lost to Purdue as late in the year as we did.
Couldn't move back up.
Get beat 49-20 by Purdue.
It carries some weight, probably majority of the weight, but you also have to factor in again.
If they had lost to Purdue 49-20 in the first week of the season,
we wouldn't have dropped as much.
They would have been back in the playoff.
Oh yeah.
Well, no, what I'm saying is it all has to deal, like, we could have lost to Purdue and possibly still got in. The reason we didn't is because of the margin that we lost. We lost by 4 touchdowns. If we lose that game 3 or 7 points, they only bump us down like they baby Alabama and bump you down like 3 spots to where you have enough time to get back. Because it was like game 9 or 10.
I think if you had lost 49-20 in week 1, you still would have been back in. It doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, that too.
Win.
But I'm just saying, based on the location of where the game was in the schedule, and you're talking losing the last week. So, I mean, because you have, if you just lose the conference championship game, you're done. There's no way. Unless you're the number 1 team and you lose, there's no way. Because there's nowhere to make up the ground anymore. At that point, it's okay. What's your resume look like? I don't care that you lost. What's your resume look like? So it all, the way that the marbles are falling now, it's all coming to a toss up of resume A, resume B, resume C. Who has the better resume? Because I will say, if you have USC, LSU, and Tennessee all vying for that last spot, or no, even if you have Tennessee, Michigan, and somebody, USC, Tennessee, Michigan, USC, if you have all three of them vying for the fourth spot, I give the fourth spot to Tennessee. Why? Tennessee's resume is better than either one of them.
Okay, so I have a little
That's
bit
what
of an
I said,
argument
too,
here.
before about Tennessee being in over USC.
Okay, so then what's the point of the conference championship then? Should that count for something? So
It does.
if USC wins the Pac-12,
Oh,
12,
you're saying they win
should they?
Pac-12.
Yeah, like shouldn't the
I have them in
Pac-12
over
or any
Michigan.
conference championship
I have them in over
championship
Michigan
count for
if that
anything?
happens.
Well, because
Unless you're like
think
a
about
3 or 4 loss conference champion, I get it. But if you're like an unbeaten or 1 loss and they still leave you out after that,
well, it's like
like,
LSU
then
is
then
right
there
on the
should be a little
fringe,
bit
and
of
they're
questioning, right?
well, it's like LSU is a good example, just like Auburn in 18 when they played Georgia for the SEC championship. They had 2 losses. They're right on the fringe. If they win the SEC, they're in. But if we're talking USC, Tennessee, and Michigan, and USC has the conference championship, I give it to USC because the conference championship, in my eye, the whole reason, sorry, I'm turn my volume down. The whole reason you built the playoff is to have the 4 best teams. 9 times out of 10, the 4 best teams are conference champions. So you start with that. But my factor was USC doesn't even win the Pac-12. Utah wins the Pac-12 again. Go Utes. Anyway, so you line them up. I give it to Tennessee because Tennessee has the better resume with the 5 top 25 wins.
Yeah.
Michigan only has what? Penn State.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Oregon won 20-17 against Utah tonight.
I almost picked
So that means
Oregon,
it's going to
too.
be. So that means it's going to be Oregon USC for the Pac-12 title. USC's
If
dinner plate is set perfect.
If Oregon beats Oregon State, it's USC Oregon. But if Oregon loses to Oregon State and Washington beats Washington State,
It's Washington.
a USC Washington Pac-12 title match.
Well, UCLA's still there because UCLA owns the tiebreaker over Washington. So UCLA would have to lose.
No, UCLA has 3 losses and they're all in conference now.
No, I thought it
Are
was
they?
2.
They're still in.
No. They lost to Oregon, Arizona, and tonight to USC.
That's right.
Oh wow. Okay. Never
That's
mind.
right. It was USC.
So
that had the 1 loss.
Washington's chaos could happen.
Yeah, but let's
So
see.
let me ask you
Utah-
this.
Yeah.
So
I
Tim
don't know what-
and Tony and Rick have made this point that if Utah would have won and it's Utah USC and they beat Utah and avenge that loss, how much of that does that help their case?
But let's see.
It helps their
Compared if
case
they
a lot.
beat Oregon and then
I think
It
Utah is out in a way because, because once again, like if Washington, they have that head-to-head victory over Oregon, but
Oh no, we lost Jeffrey again.
yeah, and if Oregon, loses to Oregon State, Washington loses to Washington State,
My
Utah wins
screen,
Colorado,
my screen was
they're
frozen.
still out because guess what? Oregon has that head-to-head
This is-
win.
I
The
was trying to
Pac-12 is like
show
the
this
most
comment, but it was
confusing.
frozen. This guy wrote
Here's the
this
thing.
at
Pac-12 is most
2:40.
confusing. Like the Big Ten, like you could figure it out. It's always Michigan, Ohio State, sometimes Penn
When?
State. And then the Big Ten West is like a whole cluster muck. Like it's either Illinois, Purdue, Iowa's
This
still there, Wisconsin's still there.
this
Well-
guy wrote this at 2:40 a.m.
It's
have-
quarter after 3.
We had 5
Where's
viewers.
Jeffrey?
Now we only have 1 viewer. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my
We've been
god.
talking about the playoff for 34 minutes. I said I needed to go bed at 1 a.m. for church. I'm just being honest with you guys. We might have to do this show on Sunday nights because I can't make this. This can't happen again. This is way too late. We have 3 games left. 3
Run
games
through them
left.
real fast.
Bedlam.
Yeah.
Oklahoma beats
Where did he
Oklahoma
go?
State. I picked Oklahoma State.
I
They
think I
lost.
picked Oklahoma State.
The Oklahoma offense found it again, apparently.
Mhm.
Yeah. So give Brent Venables more of a chance, and they'll be good to go.
Buckeye Mike, you want to add anything? Because we got to speed through so Jeffrey ain't so tired for church, so he can go bless the Lord.
Yeah.
The perfect man's got to go bless the perfect man with his presence.
Yeah.
I guess I was wrong about Oklahoma State. I guess they really are dumpster fire garbage. But other than that, I mean, this thing got to 28-3, and I just turned it off. I'm like, I don't want to waste my time with this crap.
Yeah.
Oklahoma they're not bad. They're down, but they're not bad. So it's good for Brent Venables.
Okay, Jeffrey.
Next, I mean, I'm fine.
What
I'm just
game are we on
I gotta
now?
wake up at 9 a.m. So I only gotta get like
Okay, what
5
games have we
hours of
not
sleep.
covered?
So I mean, do you think we should do this show on
Oregon,
Sunday nights
Utah,
or
for
on
starters.
Saturday nights and get done quicker? What do you
If
guys think?
we're gonna do this on a regular basis, I think we should do it on Sunday night. That way, I can prep better for this. I'm just doing all this on the fly. So
I kind of want to do it on Sunday
Yeah.
night because then I can go to
We
bed
do
at
it
4
like
a.m. and I
Sunday
don't care.
afternoons or something.
Plus, like you
it won't
said,
matter. Mhm.
plus, like you said, we're taking away from Mark's time. Like
Yeah.
we all technically could be over with Mark right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to do it on Sunday because for
Okay,
me it will
so
help me with
let's set the date.
church because then I can go to bed early on Saturday nights and then go on Sunday night. I can stay up at 4 a.m. and talk whatever. I'm good with that.
And I will say, with Walking Dead being over tomorrow, I can start as early as possible from now on. So
Mhm.
Okay, so next Sunday we will be back here for all of our viewers that are going to watch us later. Next Sunday we will be back to recap the whole Saturday slate and talk some smack, okay? And we're going to talk about
Sounds
how the
great.
Buckeyes lost by 30 and Indiana dominated their opponent and how Alabama lost to Auburn and how we're going to beat the crap out of Kentucky. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, the two good teams are gonna lose, and the two bad. Well, Louisville's not bad, but the two not so good teams are gonna win. That makes sense. I love it, man. I mean,
Yeah. And
Buckeye Mike, I honestly don't know if you'll win or lose. I'm just
I don't
throwing
even.
that out there for all the Michigan fans so they don't hate me as much.
if there's any
and
Michigan fan
anybody
in
that
the
watched
chat,
this, well,
then let us
we're
know.
sorry we kept you up this late.
Good night, guys. Yeah, go to bed, man. You need your sleep. Mozart needs to
So.
sleep for sure. I agree. He needs to play music.
So
Okay, so next Sunday we will do this. But while we're here, let's recap these last 2 games, and so we
Till
can
4
all
a.m. on a
put it
loop.
into this.
You guys watch
All right.
Deck the Halls, right? Till 4 a.m. on a loop. You know, the roof with the here it comes Santa like 4 a.m. man. All right.
let's see. USC, UCLA.
Yes, that game.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of touched on that. Like,
Okay,
congratulations
USC.
to USC, Tim, Tony, Rick.
Yeah.
Rick, congratulations. USC's going back to the Pac-12 title game. They're going to Vegas, baby. Woo! That's all I got to say. Sorry,
I picked USC.
sorry, DTR, bad DTR showed up again.
I
Yep.
picked USC. You guys,
Oregon,
I think,
Utah.
all picked UCLA except Austin. Austin said he picked USC.
We
me and
touched on
him-
that, right?
Will pick UCLA. You
I
picked
did.
UCLA, Jackson.
I
and
will
Buck.
say
I'm
bad
with-
DTR showed up.
Yeah,
The only
and I
Bad
told
DTR
you.
showed up at the end. And the USC defense getting turnovers when it matters. Yes, they gave up a lot of points, but they got the turnovers when it mattered. Saved the day. And for all of our USC fans, especially Tony, go Trojans, fight on.
I will say, I did tell you, Jeffrey, that DTR was going to be the key because if he didn't show up, it was game over.
Mhm. The only reason why I picked
True.
USC was because of the fact that I just
And
felt
okay, Austin, which games did we not cover?
We still have one more.
What's
Oregon,
the last
Oregon,
Utah, that's it.
Washington.
Oregon,
Oregon, Utah. My bad.
one? Oregon,
The only
Utah.
No one's
real
going to cover
quick, the only-
Washington, Colorado.
The only reason I picked USC, real quick, the only reason I picked USC is because I just
So.
felt UCLA losing to Arizona. I just didn't trust them. If they win that
Oregon
game, I'm
surprised
picking
us.
UCLA.
Oh, and apparently we got bamboozled. We thought Bo Nitz wasn't going to be playing, but he played.
Something told me he was going to play.
I'm the only one that picked Oregon, too. I even told
Yeah.
Jackson, I said Oregon, and Jackson's like, you're crazy. And I'm like, something tells me Oregon's not going to lose another game until they get to the Pac-12 game. And Jackson, you
Yeah.
said it. You said I was crazy, and I told you Oregon was going to bounce back, and they did.
Yep.
You went
Yeah, that was a
Oregon
good
on that
pick.
one, Austin?
That was a good pick, Austin, because I almost picked Oregon, but I picked Utah by 4.
Congratulations
I picked Utah
on
by
that
4
game, man.
points. I almost picked them, but good job. Good job.
And
I get why you were hesitant, Jeffrey, because if Bo Nix was out, Ben from Exploring for Ben and Sam has said multiple times that if Bo Nix goes out, their offense is dead. Well, he played today and it worked. The only reason why I picked him is because I thought their defense would maybe show up, and I'm sure the defense did, but that's what I got to say on that.
I would have picked Oregon if I'd have known Bo Nix was playing, but the only other reason I almost
I
picked
guess
him
that's
is
a wrap, right?
Utah. You guys can hear me, right? Because every time I'm saying something, you say something, Jackson. So everybody, you can hear. Okay, just make sure.
Yes, it is. So
Just the last thing. The only
anybody
reason why I
that
didn't-
watched us, well, we're sorry we kept you up late, and we'll be seeing you later.
The only reason I picked Utah is because of the fact they're not as good on the road, and I almost picked Oregon because